Righty ho, okay, dokes. Just make sure all this stuff is good evening, guten Abend, Kinder. We wait with bated breath since Batman Prime. I do apologize a bit late. I've been had some domestics that have sort of taken over my affairs for the last week or so. I haven't had much sleep, but I thought, gosh, some interesting stuff's happening in the world. And Charlotte Jordan, the Mossad is here. The internet is safe with the Internet Defense Force. But I thought, whoa, it's been fantastic stuff happening in Israel, as all eyes are on Israel. But they really also point back home to Blighty, where one of the most insidious pieces of legislation and movement, the BDS sanction movement, has been trying very hard to gain a foothold. To those who are conservative minded, which we have a lot of in the chat, this is quite important to observe and watch the attempts to do something which is fundamentally against our principles, and they may be counterintuitively at first, but we're going to see why they're not. And we're going to see what's happened to this piece of legislation, why the United States and the UK have done everything to crush it, and what it really means. But before we get there, what about this? People are going to say, oh, but the Palestinians, the Arabs, the injustice, the oppression, the enemies, the hatred, we must get Israel. So if you look at scripture, of course, we look at our guidance for those who believe and above. It's if you turn to Proverbs and Jewish scriptures and Tanakh and the Testament, how are we meant to think about enemies? Are Jews out there just to go and kill their enemies? We noticed in Jenin, it was a remarkable operation by the IDF, over 1,000 soldiers, and almost no real damage done. All the people executed were armed militants. I mean, there were some tweets coming out. Look at these poor chaps resisting with homemade guns, and I saw 15s, M16s, and M20, and AK-47. Right? So you look at this and you go, should there be some sort of is Israel being painted as the source of hate, or are they actually behaving in a moral fashion? And in Proverbs 67, King Solomon said, when the Lord accepts a person's ways, he will cause even his enemies to make peace with him. So when a person finds favor in God's eyes, then even the person's enemies will make peace with him. The bottom line here is that you should, a message coming over here is that peace is the actual objective. Peace in the world is the objective. And that peace in the world is not often at an easy cost, easy price to pay. I mean, condolences to the brave Israeli soldier who lost his life, unfortunately, in the events, in the operations against the terrorists. But what does this really mean when we come back? Where's the source of this? And from British politics, what's been really fascinating has been these two movements, like I say, have been pressuring and breaking the Labour Party in two, breaking the duopoly of the Conservative Party in two, with the near mirror in the Anglosphere going on in the United States and Australia, as both those parties fail to reflect their politics. The far left are really unhappy with the Labour Party, and the right wing of the Conservative Party are really unhappy with the Tories. And what's really happening is you're seeing this splinter effect as these shapes are coalescing, and these optics of the world unite, right? And we're going to look at those shapes through the BDS legislation. Particularly, I've been trying to do a bit of research in my, fortunately, I've been out of commission the last couple of weeks because of an event some of you may be aware of. But and I've been doing a little bit of my homework in between my time, and the more I dig and the deeper I dig, I find this remarkable source of right-wing Jewish hatred is easy. We all know our mates, hey, see how bros. We've heard all the arguments, right? I mean, I must say that last year, most of those people popped on the panels. Where's Moonlight Warrior? And they haven't managed to really make the case. But the left are far more organized. And they're very, shall we just say, in one hand, I think they're conflicted. They're sincere about the idea of injustice and oppression. But it reeks of anti-Semitism. So we're going to play a couple of videos. They're going to be short and sharp. And then we're going to look at, I know a few people want to jump on, they've asked before the stream came on. And we're going to look at the BDS legislation specifically. We look at some fantastic refutations from Melanie Phillips, amongst others, and also who voted which way and why. And if we hold the Labour Party to account, we go back the clock 3 years before, Jeremy Corbyn, the two most powerful populist figures, and you know populism means a lot in terms of what we're doing for our work, the two most powerful populist figures in the United Kingdom, Nigel Farage, reflecting about 50% of the population, you would argue, as if Brexit was a proxy, and Jeremy Corbyn, both are being sunk for various reasons that are kind of quite strange in pattern speak. And in the case of Jeremy Corbyn, he insisted he was not anti-Semitic. He insisted the Labour Party was not anti-Semitic. They insisted, even when Keir Starmer came on, that anti-Semitism be stomped out. And we look at a few key points in the last 2 to 3 years leading up to the final vote to ask yourself, if the left intend to do this and you're conservative, then it's very important to understand the mechanics of the left. But before we do that, rather than playing a long ditty, it's what I usually do, I want to have a big shout out to my boys. Do sub, like, and share the Carnist MP4 channel, who make some of the nicest edits. And I'm reminded of the young rabbi in the making, Joseph Cohen, who said, hey, Banksy, Assalamu alaikum, Banksy. Happy for you to jump on. We need as many Iranian agents on the stream as we can, man. But I think Joseph Cohen once said, I can't find the clip. He said, they don't like the Jews when they're strong. It always seems when the Jews are weak, it's easy. But if Jewish strength is ever demonstrated, this is not going to happen. So please, share the Carnist MP4 channel. I'll put the link in the comments. And enjoy some pretty. These guys need to make memes, man, and fast. Hey, Mossad, you should talk to these boys. We don't know them. Please give them a sub, share. I talked to the boys. I said, hey, you chaps should get a call out because they're a small channel, but it makes a pretty nice edit. So let me just put that in the chat before I forget, because we don't want to have that. Kahanist or MP4. It's like a little junior. It's like a junior Mata. Check out, these boys should be beaming. Right. So Jamie, hello. So right here, so what is the state of this anti-BDS legislation? Wassalamu alaikum. Anyone else, any Muslims want to jump on and defend the case? That's going to be good stuff. What is the state of the BDS legislation? Well, what's fascinating is in the UK and the US, the left have realized that they cannot get popular support. They cannot get the people behind them. They cannot get the general population to be anti-Jewish. They wrestle the struggle to get the governments to do anything that is against Israel, the state of Israel. So they're using the oldest trick in the book. They want to use the power of economic warfare against the state of Israel. The idea being that they could replicate something, and they use a false equivalent on many levels of South Africa. And they decide that, if we can go after Israel, we can get them, then we'll bring the state down, and there will be peace and love on earth because the Palestinians will embrace the Jews and they'll just live happily together after. And at no point is anything in the Hamas charters, anything to worry about, any of the anecdotal evidence, anything to worry about, that these people may not wish to live with Jews in peace. So important for us to understand what that is. If you look at the definition, which is quite important. Let's see if I've got a copy over here somewhere. If you look at the definition of anti-Semitism, the main thing here is that they don't want anti-Zionism to be seen as anti-Semitism. So if you look at what is anti-Semitism, we have to go to who would be the sources of canonical definitions. Well, first and foremost, it would be the Jewish people. A black person wants to define racism. I'm not going to ask a brown person or a white person what a black person thinks is racism against him. I'm going to ask a black person to define racism against him. I would look to the Jewish people to define anti-Semitism as they would know what they consider anti-Semitism. The IHRA definition is pretty clear. It has about 11 points in it. We'll go through the obvious ones, or obviously right-wing ones. Yeah, the Holocaust didn't exist, gas chambers, blah, blah. But the ones that are really insidious, where the left come in is, and some of them overlap, accusing Jewish citizens of being more loyal to Israel or the alleged priorities of Jews worldwide than to the interests of their own nations. This, despite, goes against many Jewish teachings that you must be loyal to the nation you're in. More importantly, the one that really is the linchpin, a few of them actually, denying the Jewish people their right to self-determination, example, by claiming that the existence of the state of Israel is a racist endeavor. Roger Waters, Joe Rogan, all of them going out, but they're being racists. Applying double standards, this is really important when we get to Jenin, Applying double standards by requiring of it a behavior not expected or demanded of any other democratic nation. So Jenin has about, I did my little bit of homework, Jenin has about just under 60,000 people in the kind of town area. They keep calling it the refugee camp. The refugee camp within it has about 15 to 18,000 people, hard to count it, armed to the teeth. Let's see if we can apply the IHRA definition. How would Britain handle a town 50,000 strong, of which there are 20,000 armed ISIS people wandering around with guns? Would Germany permit a town with 20,000 armed to the teeth? I mean, talk about IEDs, rocket launchers, grenades, serious weaponry. How did they get there, that weaponry? Would they permit it? Or you say you're just being anti-Islamic. No. Would the British permit the IRA, for example, to stash 20,000 strong militia force during the Troubles? No, they would not. But somehow, in the case of the State of Israel, it's okay to allow this, again, the double standards. Keep these things in mind, right? Double standards for the State of Israel being considered racist. So if we look at this, before we look at the articles, so when the vote came in, the question is, Jeremy Corbyn, when he was rose to fame, Jeremy Corbyn was going to be the equivalent of Farage, the most powerful populist leader. A lot of people, and I respect Jeremy Corbyn's integrity. I respect the fact that he has been a tireless champion for social justice, a tireless champion for the oppressed, and I can appreciate these things that are downtrodden. But this Achilles heel, sometimes that that sort of zeal for the oppressed can make you the oppressor. Sometimes you hate so much that you end up being the hater. In the same way, this crash and burn of Jeremy Corbyn is quite interesting. So I want to play a couple of quick clips just to refresh for those who are not. I don't remember all these things very well. I want to just play a couple of quickies, just to bring us to speed before we get to the meat of the BDS stuff. A quick tour from the Telegraph across Jeremy Corbyn's rise and fall.
Shame on you! Shame on you!
Anti-Semitism is racism, full stop.
He was supporting Zionism, and his boy went mad, and they ended up killing 6 million Jews.
But I never, ever thought that I would experience significant anti-Semitism as a member of the Labour Party.
Involved in that reclaim?
I was present when it was laid. I don't think I was actually involved in it.
Two problems. One is they don't.
To those who don't understand that, what was he released a week on the terrorists who executed and killed in Munich in 1972 the entire Israeli and most of the entire Israeli athletic squad. Jeremy Corbyn had no problem commemorating such worthy.
Want to study history, and secondly, having lived in this country for a very long time, probably all their lives, they don't understand English irony either.
It is institutionally anti-Semitic, that its leadership is incapable of dealing with issues of anti-Semitism.
Yes, I used to have full access to the membership database, but that was restricted in February. anti-Jewish, racist language.
Institutionally anti-Semitic.
Significant anti-Semitism as a member of the Labour Party.
And just to recap where that was where it was in if you imagine the key events, 2016 Brexit, leading up to Jeremy Corbyn walking in and gaining all that populist support for momentum, and then not just throwing it away, incapable of even accepting and denying outright that there was any anti-Semitism in the Labour Party. Now, this is very important from a populist perspective because there's no other left-wing leader that quite gets the people behind him in Britain as Jeremy Corbyn, but that's not going to work with anti-Semitism. So what happened effectively is you got a strange coup of sorts where Keir Starmer comes in, claiming that he's going to flush out anti-Semitism, where what he seems to be doing in terms of scripture, by their fruits and spirits shall we know them. He seemed to be made a power play using anti-Semitism as a ruse to purge the left wing of the Labour Party. You look at all the left-wing Labour channels; they're furious with Starmer. They want Jeremy Corbyn back, but he's not coming back without the anti-Semitism going away. That's not going to happen. And how would we know? How would we judge that anti-Semitism? The vote that occurred a few days ago, second readings with the House of Commons. Been watching a few bills very closely. That's one of them. And he comes up and you say, does the leopard change his spots? Has he cured himself of anti-Semitism? Does he really believe that there's something equal? I'm going to play you so you can decide for yourself what you think of Jeremy Corbyn's position as he, if you bear with me a second, chaps, but behind the old, I think we're going to look at Jeremy Corbyn coming out now as an independent, deselected from the Labour Party, coming out as a British politician, arguably representing 40% of people who may not be anti-Semitic. They may have no problems with the Jewish people at all. They may have some sympathies to the Arab cause in Palestine, but they sure hell aren't anti-Semitic. None of the data shows the British people are anti-Semitic in a general broad sense at all. In fact, the Jews score very, very favorably in lots of social metrics in the West, United Kingdom, Germany. But anti-Semitism is rising. It's coming from a small focal point in terms of physical violence and a broad, insidious far left. Anti-Zionism equals fascism, Zionism equals racism, Zionism equals imperialism argument. So as Jeremy Corbyn, and this is from 2 days ago, where he stands up as an independent, deselected by the Labour Party, you tell me if you believe he is now not anti-Semitic.
Many who supported the apartheid regime, called Mandela a terrorist, asked for the banning of the ANC in this country, and when local authorities such as Sheffield led the way on local authority action in opposition to apartheid, they faced sanctions from the government. Those of us that called for the boycott of Californian grapes during the time that the Californian grape pickers were facing such oppression from the police forces in California, again, would be illegal. Or of all of the issues around the world we're faced with, such as Indonesia's behavior in West Papua, such as the failure of Morocco to allow a referendum on the future of Western Sahara, such as Saudi Arabia and its war against Yemen, any expression of that would be banned by this piece of legislation. Those people all around the world.
I was going to take a quick break, but oh no, I have to interrupt you, Mr. Corbyn. I did a bit of data drilling myself in 1948. Would you believe something was born in sin? There have been almost 10 million deaths in the Middle East. But where has Labour and where have you and John McDonnell been on Muslim death, Arab and Arab death, tribal death, despot death? The deaths in Israel are less than 1% or 10% of that, 100,000 to 10 million. Where have you been silent? Where's the calls from Jeremy Corbyn to ban the Syrians, ban the Saudis, ban the Iranians, ban the Iraqis? No. Just the Jewish people. Remember the IHR definition. If a set of standards are to be held to one nation that you not hold equivalently to the others, that's anti-Semitism. Silence, and my entire career cannot remember Jeremy Corbyn screaming about the Syrians, chemical weapons, screaming about Iran, child soldiers, screaming about Iraq, I don't even want to go there, Egypt, nothing, silent, Yemen, silent. Just the Jewish people, Mr. Corbyn.
Who want to support the Palestinian people are not anti-Semitic. They're not anti-Israeli groups, but what they do want is justice for the Palestinian people. That surely would be a much better, a much stronger message to send out from this House today, rather than the attempt to close down free speech in this country.
Jeremy Corbyn,
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And it's a pleasure to follow the member for Ruislip Northwood and his very pleasant reference to the late Ray Davis, who was a wonderful campaigner all of his life. This is a truly appalling piece of legislation that's put before us. And this fits into the bigger picture of anti-democratic legislation that this government has put forward that reduces the right of free speech and assembly, that over-empowers the police, that restricts trade unions, and tries to criminalise people who seek a place of safety and asylum on our shores. And so we have to put it in the context of yet another attack on the civil liberties of people in this country. Over 70 organisations have expressed deep misgivings and opposition to this bill. Muslim organisations, Jewish organisations, trade unions, human rights organisations, libertarian organisations, religious groups, and many, many others have just said this bill is wrong and this bill will damage the civil liberties of everyone in this country. It gives massive power to the Secretary of State, massive powers to the Secretary of State, effectively to decide what local authorities can say, think, or do. And if a local authority, for example, decided it wanted to speak up about human rights in a country where there's a significant number of people from that country living in their community, for example, there's a very large Somali community in my constituency, would my local authority be not allowed to say anything about Somalia? Under this bill, they'd have to seek the permission of the Secretary of State before they could do anything. And so it goes on with so many others. And having been in this House since the 1980s, I sat through many, many debates about South Africa. And there were many members over there, many, who supported the apartheid regime, openly supported the apartheid regime, called Mandela a terrorist, asked for the banning of the ANC in this country. And the ANC had its offices in my borough. SWAPO, Southwest Africa People's Organization, which led to the liberation of Namibia, had its offices in my constituency. There were calls to ban them. And when local authorities such as Sheffield led the way on local authority action in opposition to apartheid, they faced sanctions from the government. And so why were they so concerned about it, other than to prevent any effective, peaceful loyalty and support to the people of South Africa who were facing the horrors of the apartheid regime? And so under this piece of legislation, what we did over South Africa would be impossible or illegal. And so you would then end up then suspending councillors, prosecuting local authorities, surcharging councillors. I'm not quite sure where it would lead to. Those of us that supported the people of Chile after General Pinochet had seized power and called for a boycott of Chilean goods and non-investment policy in Chile, again, would be illegal on a much more different.
Again, the principle here, the point here is, and this is the thing about the left is, and to those who are conservative, and when we look at Melanie Phillips' fantastic article, we'll see this as well, is that you don't get to produce, you don't run a state. You're not responsible for foreign policy. You can, as an individual, Mr. Corbyn, you cannot buy finance-ready wine or hummus or dates. Go for it, knock yourself out. But you can't get and take a local council, government body, or anything that is state-funded and conduct your own foreign policy. It's exactly what the far left have done to infiltrate universities, they've used the collective long march to the institutions approach, but this is not, you don't get to play foreign policy. You're not elected by the people of the state to conduct foreign policy.
Different basis. Those of us that called for the boycott of Californian grapes during the time that the Californian grape pickers were facing such oppression from the police forces in California, again, would be illegal. Or of all of the issues around the world we're faced with, such as Indonesia's behavior in West Papua, such as the failure of Morocco to allow a referendum on the future of Western Sahara, such as Saudi Arabia.
Oh, Jeremy, I mean, if the right have an Achilles heel, it's on race, and they don't care about class, and if the left have an Achilles heel, they care about class more than race. He is impassioned about the people of Papua New Guinea, but not about the people of England. You're not going to see Jeremy Corbyn ever come and make a plea for some small town in the black country that has been decimated by capitalism, decimated in England. I've been to these towns. They are just really, really sad. You look at the great history of England and say the black country, and you look around and you see poverty that's unbelievable in England. Jeremy Corbyn is silent on the matter. But the people of Papua New Guinea, go Papua New Guinea. I mean, no, I can appreciate. I mean, my heart goes out to people of Papua New Guinea. I must confess that I'm not familiar with their struggle, right? So whatever their struggle is, I'm not, I'm not convinced that, but England, no, Jeremy Corbyn's silent on the matter, just like the right are silent on class, silent on race.
And its war against Yemen, any expression of that would be banned by this piece of legislation. This is a terrifying bill that's been put forward here today. Now, most of it has been framed around Palestine and Israel. Well, there are many groups in Israel, many groups who are frightened by this particular piece of legislation and what goes with it, and also believe there should be justice for the people of Palestine. I spent Saturday evening talking to Mustafa Barghouti of the Palestine National Initiative, who believes in non-violent resistance to the occupation. Non-violent resistance to the occupation.
But what about Mr. Corbyn? What about the violent resistance? Did you see the cache of arms that the IDF just got out of Jenin? I saw a tweet by Barghouti who said, "Oh, homemade weapons by the brave children struggling against the invasion." You're like, why is he silent about the Hamas Charter? Why is he silent about violent oppression? Why is he silent about drive the Jews into the sea, or we'll pave the road to Damascus? Silent on those matters. It's just more oppression. It's almost like a symmetrical Wignats when they go, it's everything is more race. This thing is everything is more oppression. And it's really rings hollow because, no disrespect, I mean, my heart goes out when I say to the people of Papua New Guinea, but the people of Britain would expect the British leaders to maybe spend a little more time worrying about the black country than the people of Papua New Guinea.
Pointed out to me, and I noted the figures down as he was talking. At the moment on the West Bank, there are 150 settlements. 70 more settlements are being planned or actually built at the present time. And that there are over 400,000 people, Israeli people, that have been moved into those settlements. And it is impossible for Palestinian people to move around.
I'll put my cards on the table. When I was younger, obviously, most people are much more radical or lefties when they're younger. I cared about the justice issues across the world. And I thought after 92, there'd be peace in the Middle East. But over the decades, I slowly realized that they don't want a peace. And I look at there's a couple of great channels. There's one chap who is not just asking Palestinians, Arabs, and Jews in Israel the same sets of questions in English or Hebrew or in Arabic. And I just see consistently when asked the question, will you live in peace with the Jews? They say no. Now, I'm not saying that's not the case of all Arabs. There are lots of Arabs in Israel are living a great life. And if all the rest of the Arabs were to go like, hey, we can live in even a one-state solution in peace and prosperity and not want to kill all the Jewish people. But again, Jeremy Corbyn is silent on the matter, right? Super silent on the matter, Mr. Corbyn. Back to Papua New Guinea.
Their own area of land. And so the idea that the products made on those settlements that are sold outside should somehow or other be seen as legitimate products, they're illegal within terms of international law, they're illegal within terms of EU law. And so I would just ask that we understand the importance of the right of protest. And I just finish with this point. Today in Geneva.
I wear my Zionist hoodie, and I'm now on conversation number 83 in Berlin, thanks to Joseph and the Israel Advocacy Movement. My cherished hoodie is getting me great conversations. And my local Spatikov, my local corner shop, I was confronted by a German peacenik who saw the hoodie, came running on the shout. It's a Muslim shop, run by Muslims, going, hey, genocide, baby killer. I was like, hello, guten Tag. My name is Ralph. He's like, your hoodie is genocide. It's baby killing. And he went on and he tried all these lines of argumentation and he kept falling back on international law. Kept falling back, what about international law? And James asked him, well, where was the international community during the show? Where was the international community and international law when the Jews were being massacred in Europe? Where was the international community when Israel was being formed? Where was the British government permitting Jews to escape from the Holocaust and get to, where were the Americans? They weren't back. International law has only worked in the favor of those who have in power in the United Nations. It is surely an inalienable right for the Jewish people in the state of Israel to not rely on the security to be negotiated by other people outside of international law. I mean, that would be insane. So, for example, let's take some moral quandary propositions. I have 200 nations, 7 races, 650 tribes. Let's say 199 nations decided that the country of Hungary was no longer legitimate, and the Hungarian people must yield their sovereignty in perpetuity to the rest of the world. Would the Hungarian people be legitimate morally in saying, no, we don't think we agree? And the rest of us said, well, we've all got together, 198 nations. We've signed a contract that says you no longer have the right to exist to defend yourself. Would it be morally right for the Hungarian people to say, actually, you know what? Sorry, but no, I think we'd rather just go for like survival. Is that okay with you? This international law thing is a sort of very, very bizarre post-World War II red herring. So God bless the United States, who has been consistent and solid in vetoing any such attempt to sanction Israel, despite the efforts of people like Mr. Corbyn.
As an example of the occupation, there are in Jenin 14,000 people in a refugee camp that is less than 0.4 square kilometers. 14,000 people in less than half a square kilometer of land. And the Israeli Defense Force...
I was sincerely hoping that there'd be people who would... The stream was going to be open very shortly. You're happy to jump and make the case that you believe the Zionist apartheid, that's anti-Semitic, regime, it's a nation state, not a regime. It's an illegal colonial settler state. I mean, it's like a string of sort of like left-wing, just vitriol against the state of Israel and the Jewish people. The Zionist, I assume you know Zionism just means the right for the Jewish people to have a homeland, right? Apartheid, get the fuck out of here. Regime, it's a nation state. It's an illegal by what? It was formed illegally in 1948. What do you mean illegal? Colonial settler state. You can't colonize land that belongs to you. I reject the term. I've recently been talking to some Israeli boys. I reject the term out of hand settler. I think we should kill the term settler and just call them residents. What are settlers? You mean residents, right? Residents of Judea and Samaria. Settlers, right? Decided that the Zionist apartheid regime is an illegal colonial settler state. It's almost like if I created an AI and asked it to give me left-wing buzzwords and go, what is Israel? But I only give it left-wing buzzwords, that's the sentence would come up. But happy to have you jump on and make the case.
Says it's not targeting civilians. It's impossible to use any kind of weaponry against the population there without targeting civilians. More have died, more bitterness, more hatred.
I'm sorry, Callus Saxon, I have to take you to task with that. I do not want this channel to have any hatred towards the Welsh people. So please stop that. We all love the Welsh people.
And more problems come down the road. Those people all around the world who want to support the Palestinian people are not anti-Semitic. They're not anti-Israeli groups. But what they do want is justice for the Palestinian people. That surely would be a much better, a much stronger message to send out from this house today, rather than the attempt to close down free speech in this country.
Yeah. Close down free speech. This is another one I heard. I really went to, I found some of the most incredible left-wing channels. They're so well organized, including one of the most insidious ones called the Electronic Intifada. You must get in there and have a chat with the guys in the comments. They tend to delete a lot of comments. The Electronic Intifada, they're run by this crazy kind of guy. He's like a total ginger. I've never met someone so dedicated to attacking the state of Israel and Jews. He just sits there with a bunch of people, and his entire life work is to just basically get to the state of Israel and Jews. I don't know what bees in his bonnet about Israel and Jews, but oh my God, he's good there. But when you say free speech, and you say it's all about that, do we agree with you? Do the Brits agree with you? Do the Americans agree with you? Do we? I mean, how about the Americans on free speech? I mean, you think free speech would go to the Americans? No. This is, again, a logical fallacy. Let me just point quickly to, I know some people are dying to jump. I'm looking at my DMs. This is Senator Rubio explaining this free speech nonsense. So let's listen to this free speech nonsense by Corbyn.
That supports the BDS movement. Now they'll tell you, no, we don't. It's about free speech. That's a farce. Last year, I filed a bill. And all the bill said is if you are a U.S. state or city and you pass a law that says we, our government of the city, the county, or the state, are not going to do any business with you, a company, if you are part of the BDS movement, which is nothing but an effort to destroy Israel economically. That's what it is. It's anti-Semitism dressed up as foreign policy, dressed up as economic policy. That's what it is.
Anti-Semitism dressed up as foreign policy, anti-Semitism dressed up as economic policy. Sounds like a very lovely, terse description by Senator Rubio of the entire BDS movement. And Senator Rubio has been fantastic in making sure it's going nowhere fast in the US.
There is no First Amendment right to have a government contract. And that's all this bill does. In essence, let's condemn it in words and let's condemn it in action.
And you heard it from Senator Rubio yourself. I thought we might get Dr. Mengele to show up in the chat with a good Marvin, Dr. Mengele. I trust you're well, and I assume any opening date for Raikonda yet? I know the last Reich didn't make 1,000 years. I'm hoping the next Reich will at least open on time, right? But the Reich has been late. So one last thing, because I know a few people want to jump on. So therefore, if anti-Semitism has been in the Labour Party and Labour's done nothing, and Keir Starmer came in promising he would root it out, promising he would get rid of it, promising, he said, that he was going to stand, I'm just going to flash a quick couple of articles at you. Let's hold them to, the Christians in the chat, let's hold them to the Gospel according to Matthew, right? What did he say? Why my Labour Party, so this is in the Jewish Chronicle, excuse me, why my Labour Party will always stand up for Israel, wrote Keir Starmer. 2021, hot off is sort of like, oh, I got rid of the far left, I got the left, the real progressive left hate Keir Starmer now with a passion that the conservative right in Britain hate the Tories, but probably more so. And he came in saying, well, my Labour Party will stand up for Israel. I used anti-Semitism to make sure, as part of the movement to get rid of Jeremy Corbyn, rightfully so. But then Keir Starmer's track record should be what? One of rooting out the anti-Semites, making sure things like BDS, which is clearly anti-Zionism, which is clearly anti-Semitism, right, would be purged from the party. In his own words, why my Labour Party will always stand up for Israel. Well, let's have a look and see how his Labour Party and he himself has done before I know you want to get in 1 second, man. Here is the voting record for the bill for the second reading to those who follow legislation like maniacs like we are. Let's have a look. Here's the House of Commons votes held on the 3rd of July. The bill is called the Economic Activity of Public Bodies Overseas Matters. It's bill number 1586, with the division is 1586, and then you guys care about the data. What happened? The Conservatives, 260 odd to 66, supported it. Where the rest of the people, where was Labour? Only 10 people explicitly said no, silent on the matter. Keir Starmer used the whip to make sure none of the Labour of his Labour side would actually get together and join the British people and join the Parliament, and making sure BDS was defeated. So Keir Starmer looks like he cannot be trusted, and therefore the Labour Party cannot be considered a safe space for the Jewish people anymore. But who voted no? A few members, obviously, Caroline Lucas, the Green Party. She's obviously more concerned with the people or the women of Papua New Guinea than she would be of anything in Britain or Brighton, probably Brighton, just Brighton. But let's see who said no. Jeremy Corbyn voted no. So really, still the anti-Semite. Jonathan Edwards, Claudia Webb, we know who she is and what she's all about from Leicester East. Dawn Butler, Absana Begum, Salam Alaikum sister, obviously, John McDonnell. The entire explicit communist far left, the ones that literally consider Israel in the trope as being a fascist, imperialist, colonial, settler endeavor, basically fundamentally textbook anti-Semitism. 10 of them came out and showed their hand. This should be remembered to those who ever come out saying, our Labour Party isn't anti-Semitic, the Labour Party isn't anti-Jewish at all. The Labour Party is for the Jewish people. The Labour Party is silent on the matter of the effort to destruct it. So we can see once more the most populist leader. I'm going to do a different one soon, a stream on Farage and all that fantastic stuff. But what I'm going to do is open the stream early because I know my man Jordan has been wanting to come on, and I want to talk about Janine. Dr. Mengley. Now, you see, Dr. Mengley, the thing with the far right is that I have much more respect for the actual Nazis who just come out and say, I just want to kill all the Jews and stuff. But the ones who come out and pretend they care about the brown man, Dr. Mengley, like you really care about the brown man, you really care about the Arab, you don't, my dear man. You care about them being anti-Jewish, right? Come on. Why don't you just come on and say you don't care about the Arabs, you don't care about the Palestinians, you care about anyone who's going to have a go at the Jews. Here's the link for, where is Jordan? Here we go. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, eh, Dr. Mengley? Do you think you'd spend a lot of time there yourself, man? Do you think you'd enjoy your time in Ramallah, in Nablus, would you? Can you see yourself having a wonderful afternoon somehow in Jenin? I don't think you'd spend any time in Jenin, would you? Ah, Saved by the Bell. Mossad Shalom, my friend. How are you?
Oh, sorry, hold on. Yeah, I had both the stream on. It was echoing. How are you?
Ah, very good, my man. I've been a bit busy, but yeah, I'll put the link in the chat. How are you? What's going on in Israel, man? Tell me, what's your take? It seems a bit nuts right now, right?
Well, what happens is Iran is building up armies all around Israel on the Syrian border in the Samaria, what the West calls the West Bank for some reason, Judea and Samaria, in Gaza. So in Jenin, there was an attempt to shoot rockets at an Israeli city, Afula. There's been some other stuff. I don't follow every detail, but there's been some other stuff, and there's been people out of Jenin coming and killing Israelis as well, and trying to kill Israelis. So the army went in there and they found lots of weapons and IEDs, and it's insane. So they actually had to drill food. I don't know if you saw, there's footage of a bulldozer going and cutting the road.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah,
yeah, to get all the mines and IEDs out.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, they say it's all children, but then I just saw images of, actual images coming out of social media. Jordan will probably tell us a lot more.
Yeah, Jordan probably knows more. Silver is the guy. He's keeping up with all the details, following all the Telegram groups,
Yeah.
I spent my entire life. How are you guys? I spent my entire life. I'm in the Zionist movement, fighting anti-Semitism, supporting Zionism. I'm here living in Israel, and my entire life in Canada was dedicated towards fighting the BDS. I do feel that I do have to mention I handicapped myself as an activist by I quit watching the news just because it was better for my mental health, and I realized that almost all news is fake news. So I have a friend over who was in the riots in Jenin, and I'm like very well aware of the conflict, but I'm not up to date with what the news is saying.
Well, the news seems a bit quite shocking, just the news. I think Joseph put out a good video this morning, short video, just literally they're talking about everything in their languages, occupy, apartheid, regime, children, innocent children, innocent. And then you see images of these so-called children armed to the teeth with more weapons than, you'd ever see anywhere else. You go like, okay, how do those kids, quotes children, get all these like AR-15s, I saw M16s, I saw M20, I'm like, whoa, huh? Ah, we have someone coming on who's, Assalamu alaikum. The Iranians have landed to save the day.
Assalamu alaikum, Mr. Ralph. I'm Mr. Mossad.
I'll be back in just
I hope peace and blessings of the prophets be upon you.
There were a few silly comments in the chat, so if I just want to address them very quickly. So a lot of the wing-nuts and all these idiots, the degenerates that think they're right-wing, but in fact they're left-wing, that say that Israelis hate the West. Actually, latest survey, which was done by an American, 87% of Israelis think favorably of America. That's much better than the UK. So if anyone hates America,
we should not think favorably for America. We should
doesn't
not
matter.
be
This is.
I'm
just telling them the facts.
Dual patriotism.
I'm just telling them that don't disturb me. Don't disturb me. I'm just. Don't disturb me. I'm just reading out the facts.
It is self-masochistic for Jews to want to be loyal to America.
Okay, they think. Then they didn't say they're loyal. They said they think favorably. The question was, do you think favorably or negatively about America? Hey, shut up.
The issue.
So the next point is.
Well, I was. Okay, finish your point.
Shut up for a second, dude. I'll let you speak after, okay?
Finish your point. Finish your point.
Great. Next point. Corbyn, just so people know, the wreath that he laid was for a funeral or a memorial for terrorists that mutilated and tortured the Israeli athletes in the Munich Olympics. Just so people understand, in front of each other, they tore their limbs out and tortured them to death. And that's who Corbyn goes to a memorial for. Chakrabarti is anti-Israel, which always means anti-British, no exception. Anyone who's anti-Israel is also anti-British. There are no exceptions to this rule, none. Israel is against mass immigration to Europe for simple reason. It's bad for Israel. The more Muslims there are in the EU, the less favorable the EU is to Israel, and it's bad news for Israel to have less friends. Simple. It's just simple. You're all idiots. And the last point is the NGOs, most of them are degenerates that are pushing leftist, globalist ideology on Israelis. They all come from the EU, from the UN, and from America, and they're operating in Israel on a mass scale that you had never seen in your countries. That's it. All yours, Jordan.
Okay, well, the Mossad, you like to boast about how Israel's support America, or how
I just read facts. That's all.
Let me get to my point. Let me finish my point. Okay. Well, it is a self-masochistic thing for Israelis and for Jews to support America, since one, America is not our homeland, and many Jews like to be dual patriots, and what ends up happening is they put American interests before they put Jewish interests, and they're dual patriots for their nations of birth because many of them are immigrants. Or they're dual patriots for America because they all want to live in America, which is not our homeland and which is not our people. And they boast about wanting to be these ultra patriots for America. Well, America is not pro-Israel. America is funding Iran, is funding nuclear weapons for Iran. They fund Hamas. They fund Arabs. Biden has treated Netanyahu horribly. And when he came to Israel, he had these meetings with Palestinians and with Arabs, where he wouldn't let Israeli officials in. America is by no means our ally, and it is very self-masochistic. It's self-hating. It's self-harming for Jews to want to be dual patriots.
Okay.
Do you think it's harmful for Jewish groups? Do you think it's harmful for Jewish interests to have Jewish groups in the West, such as the Anti-Defamation League or B'nai B'rith organizations in Canada? Like, does that in itself, is that against Jewish interests because it foments more anti-Semitism?
It's not against
yes
Jewish
and no.
interests.
It depends.
The issue is, well, Mossad, I'm actually Canadian and actually, have
Fair enough. Go.
spent my entire life in Canada fighting anti-Semitism. And B'nai B'rith, I have absolutely no respect for them left. They are sellouts. Basically, there was a pogrom against Jews in Toronto, May 15, 2021. Police tried to murder me. They orchestrated a pogrom against Jews. The people in charge of reviewing the police covered it up. And I sent black and white proof to B'nai B'rith. And I said, here's black and white proof that the people in charge of reviewing police covered up a pogrom and tried to murder me. And B'nai B'rith said, no, we work with the police, which means B'nai B'rith loves Toronto police. They love Canadian police more than they love Jews, which is his exact issue where I'm bringing up, which is dual loyalty, where Jews are dual loyal to their nations of birth, and they put non-Jews and they put non-Israel countries before they put their own people. And so B'nai B'rith, Canada specifically, I have absolutely no respect for them left. I understand what they're doing. They're fighting anti-Semitism. They're not doing it well, and they're not.
I just find that
they're not Israel firsters. They're not Jewish firsters. That is the issue. They're more loyal to their nations of birth than they are to their own people.
Yeah. So
I just find their work from a Gentile perspective. I find that they, like, if you see any of their posts in Twitter, it gets heavily ratioed, and there really is no public support. They only get bolstered by the media. I guess the problem is they also work hand in hand with the fake news media. And so this is probably why that they have a horrible public perception.
The reason why. Hold on, just one sentence, man. Justin, just one sentence, man. The ADL is a left-wing organization. It represents the far left in Israel, maybe not so far left. maybe they like them, but the majority of Israelis, if they know about the ADL, because most Israelis don't even know, would think it's doing a bad job for Jews. That's my opinion.
The issue, what happens is the entire world is anti-Semitic, or a very high percentage of the world is anti-Semitic, and an even higher percentage of the world doesn't care. So the issue is anyone who stands up for Jews or fights anti-Semitism will get demonized by all the haters, and they get demonized on the internet. And the Jewish people are a very small pool of people, and we don't get a lot of support. So when you search groups that fight anti-Semitism, or when you hear public opinion of groups that fight anti-Semitism, you'll hear all the demonization against them, all the smear against them, all the slander against them, and you really won't see much support. So that is why people who fight for Jews in Israel, are almost all the time demonized, are almost all the time against public opinion, against backs against the wall against everyone.
Jordan, my friend, turning back, Joseph Cohen said it very well when he said they don't like strong Jews. They like it when the Jews are weak. As soon as the Jews fight for something, then suddenly it's like, oh, how can you do that? How can you stand up for yourself? Well, who else is going to stand up for you, right? The history of the Jewish people has been doing it themselves, right? Good evening, Assalamu alaikum, John. Those who know, I think John Vance is a follower of, you're a follower of secular Islamism, Claire Cause? Kind of.
Yeah, I guess a graduate student of secular.
A graduate student, he's an American converted to Islam. So meet the Mossad and meet Jordan and meet the Iranian Banksy, who is probably not the most devout Muslim I've ever known, but nevertheless.
I reject such slanderous remarks. Allahu Akbar. That's all I have to say.
Very loud, Banksy.
I'm sorry, I'll turn it down a bit.
It's okay.
No, that's all right.
I think the ideal
advocate, right? Is that right, Banksy? You follow Caliph Andrew Tate?
I am a disciple of Sheikh Andrew Tate. Yes.
Sheikh Andrew Tate.
Good to know.
It's funny, like all these red pill LARPing Muslims. It's so funny. They LARP as Muslims. They don't like. I saw this thing with Snico. He wears the Arab jalabia, but that's all he knows about Islam. He's like some girl who thinks that if you dress like someone, you're that thing.
You mean like all the girls who go to India, most of so you think they're
yeah, like little girls, like teenage girls. And he's dressing the Arabic dress. He thinks that, that's like disrespectful, if anything.
A bit of belly dancing and a bit of shisha, and suddenly think they're Arabs.
At least if he's going to be Muslim, study the Quran, study the religion. Don't pretend, man. Don't just wear the symbols. It's silly. And Andrew Tate is a good Muslim. He's got whores, he's got gambling,
He's
just like a good Muslim.
All I have to say is Allah is the best of planners, and this was the path that he put before Sheikh Tate in order for him to learn from his Jahiliyyah days of womanizing, drinking, and making all his money from prostitution, online prostitution.
Well, shouldn't he give all his money away?
And now Allah has brought him to the true religion.
No, he's just pretending.
He's a true influence of the world. Like he's actually banned from being promoted for hate speech in Britain schools.
I don't believe
in British schools. You can't promote Andrew Tate material, or else it'll be.
I think the guy needs to be. He just needs to be. He needs to be castrated and sent somewhere. Where he's not a threat to women. But the amazing thing is that Greta took him out, right? Imagine he must be regretting. He tried to taunt Greta. Greta gets him arrested, and his whole life is changed by some little autistic truant girl. So much for the big man stuff, right? But so, what's your view?
But I don't think he's guilty, though. I don't know. Like I'm not going to say he's guilty until the courts can actually present some evidence that he's guilty of human trafficking.
I believe innocent until proven guilty, and Allah is the best of planners. He will find Sheikh Tate innocent, and he shall be praised and taken up to the seventh heaven on the Barak.
All these leftists, everybody is afraid of Nick Fuentes. Nick Fuentes is a leftist. He's an Iranian cuck. He just repeats what they tell him. It's just a joke.
Spick Fuentes wants child brides, right? He wants brides.
He's gay. He doesn't even have. He's a traditionalist who doesn't have a family. when I was his age, well, I don't want to say too much, but I mean, he should be married with kids, okay? What is he doing?
He's preaching to the rest of us. People have got children.
Yeah.
They've got
Preaching
wives,
what? I
deal with
mean,
all that. He's like, hey, I want me to have lots of wives and get like a white birth rate.
And you know what?
You're homosexual. You're clearly homosexual. Right? The idea that a Mexican kid is the leader of the white supremacist movement is quite humorous.
I mean, I blame American education. If he wasn't so bad, Nick Fuentes would not be able to make money because they would know that he's lying half the time. They would know that he's just telling them stories that don't make sense.
No,
And have no
I mean, I
connection
told
to
him
reality.
day one, I'm like, bro, I don't think, I mean, no disrespect, I don't think you're entirely heterosexual, man. I went to an all-boys school with 2,000 boys. I know one.
Yeah, there's something very gay around this movement.
All I have to say is that if Nick Fuentes is the leader and the face of white supremacy, white supremacy is screwed.
Yeah.
Just a little bit.
Totally.
I
mean, it's a bunch of degens. I mean, when I see what these so-called fighters for their ethnicity, for their nations in the West think, they're absolute idiots. They got no chance. They'll be defeated in no time. They don't understand what the hell is going on.
No, but
okay, I will iterate. I'm ex-Wingnut. I'm ex-Dual Patriot, and I have noticed, or I found that most of the Wingnuts or most of the white nationalists go so far right they turn left and end up hating the Jews.
They have no idea what is going on. They're being played by anyone who can play them. They're so easy to play. I mean, that's why I see no hope, because your nationalists in the West are just idiots. I mean, they're just as bad as the CRT boys. I include all the ones that think they're smart, like Academic Agent and so on, or Sargon. They don't understand what the hell is going on.
They don't do.
Yeah, they end up having, they just blame everything on Jews, and there's like the demographic replacement in Canada, and you know the people to blame are Arabs or Muslims, because those are the ones who are the Asians who are actually demographically replacing Canada's European identity, and all the white nationalists, all the people who fight it, end up blaming the Jews, and what happens is they end up losing their own fight because they end up hating Jews more than they love their own people.
Yes.
This is the image of a heterosexual man.
I mean, just look at that. Look at that. Would you trust? I wouldn't let that man be the leader of your local lemonade stand.
Yeah, he looks like someone who's about to introduce a sleazy magician in some nightclub.
No, he looks like he's about to join a parade float or you know. One of
He's like, he's quite funny. I did see you talk about that. Yeah, so Senor.
He looks like the missing member of the village people.
It's like, where's IC3? Damn it. Oops.
So I wish.
I wanted to talk about the attacks in France. I don't know if you guys talked about it, but the Muslim attacks.
Oh yeah.
Well, I guess they're Muslim and they're rioting, I guess. And some of them have been caught saying that they're using the principles of the Quran to justify these heinous acts.
France, Donald Trump said it himself. France is no longer France. The whole country has been demographically replaced, and as far as I can care, the whole country could go to hell too, because French were some of the most anti-Semitic people historically, like the white, actual French people.
And it's also much degeneracy and neo-Marxism and
irregardless of the degeneracy, they're anti-Semitic as hell, and you know what? They can go to freaking hell. I hope the Muslims destroy it.
I'm glad that John brought up
Foucault, the child molester, and Simone de Beauvoir.
I want to ask John about this, because what do you think then? Because you did bring this up, so I thought we might as well have a sort of ask for your feedback on what Imam Tawhid believes. So what do you think about this then when it comes to France?
Yeah, I did see that video, and he did mention that there is a radical sect in Islam in the Muslim world that was banished from the Muslim world, and obviously the Western, the French government, you know, viewed them as, oh, look at these poor Muslims, they don't have anywhere to go, or you know, some of them, you know, went by boat and went across the peninsula.
But is it just let's listen to Imam Tawhid and let's see what he thinks, as he's a Muslim.
IRGC and Hezbollah people, they cannot operate in Bahrain, in Oman. These are Muslim countries. Where do they operate? In London, in France, in Washington DC, in Australia, in Canada, Toronto. They operate here. They have bank accounts. They register charity. Right. So Macron, the president of France, recently said the Islamic world is in a crisis. I say, no, you are in a crisis. You went to the Muslim countries and you imported the garbage that the Muslim countries wanted to put in prison
Alhamdulillah.
or isolate away from society.
MashaAllah.
You went and you imported them.
Yes.
Cheap labor.
Yes.
But these Islamist extremists, they don't want to work. They want free welfare. They want to marry French women, blonde hair, blue eyes. They don't have time to work. So look at Poland. They don't complain from Islamic extremism, not a single terrorist attack in Poland. The moment they sense there's a problem, they crack down on it. Polish policy, beautiful. The French, no, come. When they come, they use the resources. They go to Washington, D.C., and they sit in Congress. They support the Iranian regime.
Sorry, Banksy.
They go against the sanctions in Congress, right, with their hijab. Why? Because the ideology is filth to begin with. When you import that, or you allow it in, or you amplify it, or you glorify it in any way.
He's right, man.
Yeah, and this is, to be honest, this is what Mozart has been saying for a long time here on the channel, right? Mozart, you've been saying, like, hey, if you bring in these people, the Israelis are telling you not to do it, right? That's you've been saying this for.
I mean, don't forget that it was France that kept the Ayatollah Khomeini alive and landed him in Tehran in just the right time to take over the country.
Yes, he flew from Paris to Tehran.
Yes, the French kept him alive. Like they kept the Mufti of Jerusalem, the Nazi bastard. They kept him alive as well.
Also, Tawhidi was born in Iran, so he's fully aware of what's going on in Iran.
Okay, well, I will iterate something that's worth noting, is that he says radical Islam. There is absolutely no such thing as radical Islam. There is only one Islam, and that Islam is
Jordan, you're talking rubbish. You don't know what you're talking about.
Do you use your name and face?
I use reality. You use books. I use reality.
You don't stand behind your name and face. You want to wake up and say vision of the Jewish people, but you don't stand behind what you say?
That has nothing to do with what I just said.
Do you think that in the Quran it does say to read the Torah as well? Do you think that Islam is a more uniting religion out of all the Abrahamic faiths than Judaism and Christianity?
Every religion has Every religion has in its scripture contradictory approaches to people who are not in the religion. In Islam, we have a larger group that believes in the more radical ideas, and they are dangerous to us. At the same time, we have Muslims who are Zionists, who serve in the IDF, who risk their lives.
There is no such thing as a Muslim.
Hey, don't talk over me. Don't talk over me. There are Muslims who are
stand
Zionists.
behind your name and face, Mossad?
That's got nothing to do with it. I know Muslims.
You want to wake up the Jewish people? You want to say to people? You don't stand behind what you say?
Hey, why are you talking over me? Is that because you're losing like girls? That's what the girls do, and they can't win with argument. They keep talking about the character, and they keep interrupting.
Just get to your point. Get to your point.
This Jew on Jew.
I think I made my point.
It must stop.
You didn't make your point.
I think I made my point. I will not have an attack on all people. Okay. It just doesn't make sense.
There is no such thing as a Muslim Zionist. There is not one
there
Muslim
is.
Zionist.
There are lots of Jews who are anti-Zionists.
Let me finish my point.
But there are Muslims who are Zionists.
There's no such thing as a Muslim
There's
Zionist.
also Christian Zionists too.
Yeah, of course there are.
There are Christian Zionists. There's no such thing as a Muslim Zionist.
Yes,
the Muslim
Why not? If a Muslim believes in
I know them personally. You deny reality.
Believing in the existence of the Israeli homeland.
Yeah.
There's
totally.
No such thing.
They will risk their lives. They will risk their lives. They have risked their lives
for
for
a Jewish
Zionism.
state. Not for a Jewish state. They risked
Yes,
their
they
lives
have.
for a democratic state in Israel. There's not one Muslim Zionist in the IDF who doesn't support a two-state solution. There's not one Muslim in the IDF.
No, not true. Not true. Not true.
Yes, it is.
Talk to.
And if I
It
can
is
finish
not
my
true.
point,
But
can I
you're
finish my
lying, man.
sentence?
Okay.
Let me finish my sentence. You child. There's not one Muslim Zionist. Let me finish. Thank you for muting him. There's not one Muslim Zionist in the IDF who does not support a two-state solution. There's not one Muslim Zionist in the Knesset who does not support a two-state solution. There's not one Muslim Zionist in Israel who is not dual loyal to Palestine and to Arabs. All the Muslim Zionists are dual loyal to their own people because they're not Jewish people. They're not
You're
loyal to the
literally
Jewish
calling
people. They're
them
loyal
Muslim
to Israel.
Zionists.
That's
I'm saying
okay.
there's no
There
such
was a
thing
very
as.
Isn't that an
nice poem.
oxymoron?
That was a very nice poem. However, I know a Muslim who is a Zionist and believes in the Jewish state. And if you told him a two-state solution, he would say it's very bad, and he would be more Zionist than a lot of Jews in Israel. Okay,
But what
what
does
he's
the
an
two-state
exception, but there are lots of
solution have to do
exceptions.
with? Wait a minute. Is the two-state solution isn't in contrary to believing that Israel Jews deserve a homeland?
It is contrary to
Their goal-
hardcore's version of Zionism. Yes.
Their
Yeah, but what I
goal
mean
is
is,
to
if
steal the-
Zionism is the stance that you believe that Jewish people deserve a homeland, then two-state solution doesn't negate that.
Their goal as Muslim
It
Zionists.
depends how you view
There's
it.
actually ancient borders that Israel would like to extend more, or at least Zionists. They would actually
No.
extend more
I'm
into the
quitting this
peninsula,
podcast.
not just have a
I
little
can't
strip
finish
of land.
this
Which
I can't
peninsula?
finish one sentence. I'm quitting this podcast.
I think
So there is like Zionists have like these borders that go deeper into the Middle East, up
No,
to
that's
Syria
just
and stuff.
That's
I
just
guess that's
nonsense.
from the Bible, like some scriptures.
Did Jordan just rage quit?
That's just, yeah, he did. They're just nonsense. I mean, we have the only place that is in Syria that there are some people, maybe a tiny percentage. They say there's a small area in Syria that was originally Jewish, that you could say, you know, it should have been Jewish, whatever. I mean, it's under. We're not going to start a war for it. If they wanted to sell it, okay, but you know, we're not going to start dying for this land.
Don't you think though that Israel is kind of under attack now because the waning imperialism of America has ceased to is fading away, and more Muslim countries feel more empowered to unite against Israel as opposed to
which is why the Wiggins are total idiots, because as the West weakens, Israel suffers more, and you can see it right now. When you have a weak president like Biden, more Israelis die. Like you can see it every day in the news in Israel. When you have a stronger president, fewer Israelis die, and fewer Palestinians too. So it is important for Israel to have a strong West, not just America, but you know, the UK, France.
You also noticed that Israel is doing very well to make sure it's mending as many relationships in the other parts of the world, right? So it's still blaming.
We don't. I mean, same as England. You don't want to have enemies. You want to have good relations with as many countries as possible, right? But we the West is like where we look to. I mean, you know, Israel is West facing mostly.
Mr. Mossad, can I ask, since the Donald Trump's era of organizing the treaties between Saudi Arabia and Emirate nations with Israel, since the Biden administration has taken over, has that sort of ties, are those been weakened or broken, or are they still pretty strong, those relationships?
They are weakened, although it's complex and it's very hard to work things out, because everybody is very cagey about their moves because they don't want to upset anything. You know, it's a very volatile region, so it's hard for me to work out what's going on. But what's clear is that the US pulled out many of its troops. It seems less interested in the Middle East, and that worries Saudi, the Emirates, so they're looking to China and doing deals with China. I don't think this is good for the West, because the prosperity and the freedom that the West enjoys is partly due to its ability to control what's going on in the world.
I think I agree with you, Mossad. I think if anything, Israel is going to be safer because it's using a very, very strong multilateral policy, looking at the East, balancing itself. So it's more likely to immunize itself. I think the West will suffer much more of it. But back to the Biden.
I don't know. I mean, we're almost like an American colony in many ways. So if America goes down, I mean, it's very, very worrying for Israel just to watch America in any problems. So any problems internally in America are very worrying to Israel.
But just to the Biden point, I think John erased it. Was it John or Banksy erased it? He said, no, but the thing about that is given the checks and balances of the US and the system is the Israelis know that in 4 years there's another president. Right? So they're just going to have to play diplomatic relations with Biden will be different from Trump. And if Trump comes in, it will be different again, right? So Israelis obviously have to be polite, diplomatic relations, right? But they know Biden is going to be all sort of like, I love the Palestinians, but he's not going to go against the American people who are broadly pro-Israel. Across the board. So
but what worries us more, at least people who watch I'm very interested. A lot of Israelis don't really care about American news and stuff. They just, whatever the Israeli media feeds them, they eat, and that's it. But I try to follow what's going on. I think Israelis that do are very worried about the trends in America. I forget who's the president. There's a trend in America to leftism, to a type of leftism that we are very familiar with, and it is very anti-Israeli.
It is.
And Corbyn is part of it, AOC.
I saw it in Germany more so. I saw when Bibi was, a couple of months ago, was just down the road from me in Berlin. And obviously super security details, everything else. And then where we are in West Berlin, the lefties don't really come here. They stay on the east side of Berlin. And all the lefties kind of showed up because Bibi was in my part of town. And it's the same thing I've seen in the United States, the same thing I've seen in England. It's hordes of white far lefties going, we don't really care. We don't really care about the Palestinians. It's Israel we don't want, right? So they kind of make these strange bedfellows, right, with people who just don't agree with them. They don't share any views with the Muslims, right? It's just get Israel, right?
I mean, on Twitter, if I post, I posted something on the Amnesty page about Israel, and all the people that came, they all have like LGBT flags, and they all hate Israel. And it's so ironic because they are literally fighting for the rights of the people that want to kill them, I mean, Hamas throw gays off rooftops.
Yeah, I don't think Hamas is very LGBTQ friendly, right?
You know that I'm not any gay activist or anything. I have no patience for this stuff, but I will not throw people off rooftops. I mean, that's outside my zone, okay?
Did you see there was actually a protest in Canada of a Muslim group? I guess there's this Muslim parents and kids. They had a whole bunch of LGBT flags, and the kids were stomping on them, and they said, "No more. You're not going to teach this to our kids."
Yeah, I support them.
Yeah,
I support them.
I know that video went really right. I don't know if you saw it or not, but yeah,
they're absolutely right. They shouldn't be. I mean, as long as they don't want to kill any gay people, then they're absolutely right. They shouldn't be pushed all this stuff.
Yeah. They were like united with Christians, and now some people on the right are saying, "Oh, see what happens when you unite with Muslims? They stab you in the back." They're referencing to the riots in France now.
I had debates with a bunch of Muslims.
They're so stupid.
It's just dumb.
Islam also is facing Banksy's actually had a few debates with me on the same streams. But Islam's got a double threat, right? If it stays true to Islam and stays true to the deen, then you should be resisting LGBTQ. You should do what Allah commands you to, not doing these things. But then you've got modernity attacking Muslims, where you've got lots of young population. Banksy, you can support me on this. They're nightclubs. They're not doing their namaz. They're no longer Muslim. They're Muslims only because they don't want their parents to find out what they do when they're not at home. So modernity has got its same effect and impact on Islam in the West that would never have, for example, the same impact in Egypt or Iraq or any other place, right? Afghanistan, right? So you've got this kind of pressure, right, to be a good Muslim and not comply with these kind of lefty degenerate things, and then having Muslims just chanted all the time. Yeah, Banksy, you think Modi, right?
I wanted to comment that there's a guy in chat called Apollo who is commenting non-stop about how much he doesn't care about Israel, and that he cares about Israel as much as I care about France. But Apollo, I haven't been posting non-stop in some French forum. You're constantly posting about Israel. And why is the name Apollo? Are you some kind of...
well, ironically, Mossad, I'm in lots of like Nazi chats where they spend all days going, we only care about white power and stuff, but then they spend all day talking about Jews. They're like, bro, I thought you were meant to be all about white power.
If they really believe that the Jews are that powerful, I mean, there's no chance, really. I mean, if such a small number of Jews can control the world, who are you to change that? It's like...
You just know your place, right?
Yeah, I mean... It's just
I even see this a lot on the left where they I see this on the left where they notice that there's a trend that there's a lot of Jewish bankers and a lot of Jewish media people.
Yeah.
And so they kind of make the natural conclusion that, well, obviously Jews have some influence in the world, and it's something you can't ignore, right? So, I mean,
yeah, but
there
a
is that
lot of
aspect, and
Hollywood
there's the
is
Wignet aspect. They just blame all their life's problems on Jews. So there is a
yeah,
spectrum
but
on that.
they forget that half of Hollywood is Italian Catholic, though, which is an
Oh,
interesting.
that's true. Yeah,
aside.
that too. Yeah, or they like to pick on Freemasons too. That's another thing.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
I know. I'm familiar with that. I think it's just it's the same as CRT, really, but worse.
It's like a
It's
mirror,
worse than CRT,
isn't it? It's like you flip it where it's literally got the black man looks down up at the white man in envy. The white man looks down the black man. They're like, oh, and the Jews, and suddenly the right get confused. They're like, is it my systemic institution of oppressed Judaism, or are the Jews genetically stronger than me? And you taunt them with this, they get very, very upset. Right.
You know what it is, like these same people are getting upset about the Muslim riots, and I think there's an aspect to it where I think they're kind of jealous that even if it's Jews or Muslims, that they can, even though if it's a heinous thing, if it's like conspiring to screw somebody over in a contract or rioting in the streets, whatever it may be, but there is an aspect where I do sense there's a bit of jealousy in the average Western Gentile, in that they want they want a strong group identity, but they don't really have it with the current religion they have, with Christianity, because Christianity is kind of divided.
I agree with you, and I even actually, unfortunately, might even agree with the Khalifa Claire Call, because it's a sort of civilizational trauma, right? You see the great replacement happening. You see no real conservative movement doing very much. And obviously, when you are insecure, you're going to look to blame someone. Xenophobia comes in. Then you look at the Jewish people, go like, oh, these types are doing what they must be behind it all, right? Even though if you look around, I went to see Greta speak in Berlin. It was like 25,000 white, young German women. I didn't see many Jews supporting all the Germans. All those young German girls going, let them in. Rather have a refugee than a racist.
I mean, that's another thing. They say that they keep telling me on Twitter that the Jews invented the trans thing, and I mean, it goes back to ancient Greece and Rome. But even in modern times, if you just look at the literature, there's half the names are German. This cis thing was invented by some German. A lot of these ideas are actually German, and they're not Jewish German. They're actually German.
Wasn't Rome and Greece also invented by the Jews? Did you also invent Rome and Greece as well?
I don't know, but I know that the emperor that destroyed Jerusalem, what was his name? Hadrian. He had a lover called Antionus or something, and he.
It was actually Titus.
It wasn't Titus the general at the time, and the emperor was Hadrian. I might be confusing it.
The temple was destroyed by Vespasian, but Hadrian completely wiped out the Jews, and that caused
the diaspora. Yes. That's right. Yes. So he was a complete nonce. I mean, and he had some Greek boy lover that died in mysterious circumstances, and then he turned him into a deity.
Oh yeah, that's true.
So Apollo and Joy. I guess you are one of those.
Hang on, you mean, what are you saying, Moss? Are you saying all the Wignet movements eventually get to 17 white men with the statue of David? What are you trying to say here?
Yeah. I'm still insulted because they made his penis a bit small.
Yeah. Don't tell them where the word David comes from. It's like that. How are you, Jamie, man?
Well, what do you think David comes from? Bad. Do we know what the word comes from?
Finally, the cavalry has arrived. Evening, man.
I don't think there's like a conclusive thing about the source of this name. There's a few mysterious names in the Bible. I don't know. Is it definitive? Is it cavalry? Something?
What?
So Konov, so I haven't seen Konov for a long time. Konov's mad. There's a link if you want to get on. Yeah, it's funny because you look at, what's if the goal is, I don't want to come across as a hippie, but the goal is like world peace and harmony, we can all live together and stuff. You've got to be able to talk these differences down, right? You've got to be able to find like,
Kumbaya, my lord,
I love his smile.
kumbaya.
But Mossad was right. There are lots of Arabs who are not. You can't collectively say the Arabs in Israel, right? Like there's some big monolith, right? The Muslims and all the Muslims are not the same. Right?
Jordan doesn't understand. In Israel, there are groups of Arab Muslims who are slightly different from the people around them, and were therefore grateful when the Jews arrived, because the Jews just treated them on a secular basis, just like people. And they thought this is great, so they actually cooperated with the Israelis from early on. And I have a good friend who's from that tradition, and his grandfather, I know his father served in the IDF, and him and his brothers did. I think even his granddad did, because they were grateful. We protected them.
In London, I met an Arab Israeli guy who was so patriotic Israeli. I was like, wow, you're Arab. He's like, I'm totally Arab. Are you Muslim? He's like, I'm Muslim. Are you like pro-Israeli? I would die for the state and fight for the state of Israel. So of course they exist, right? It's not like they're all.
They exist and they have
different
reasons.
I know there is some Muslim that actually support Hamas.
Aren't there like very patriotic non-English people in England? Some of them. I know there's like a community of Sikh which I interact with sometimes on Twitter, because I know they're very patriotic in England, right? So I don't think it's impossible.
Yeah, but then I guess Jordan's quite young as well, and I guess he's right in that he's out on the he's on the front line of that kind of excitement. But then I guess over time you get to know lots of different people, don't you? Mossad, you'll probably get to know that they are actually not all the Arabs.
He just wants to see things in black and white.
Yeah,
but we need that fire as well. You need that kind of fire in one place, but it needs to be tempered by reason as well, right? You need to have reasonable people. And that's usually age as well, right? Mossad, it's like when you're in your early 20s, you're probably like, hey, let's go change the world with an AK-47. Have some children and stuff, you might not want to use your AK-47 anymore, right?
No compromise.
No compromise.
Apollo is obsessed with Israel and is accusing you of being obsessed with Israel. Apollo, you're spurging in the chat. Ralph is just talking calmly about one of many topics he's interested in.
Does Apollo want to come on to the show here and defend his position?
I mean, Ralph talks about all sorts of stuff,
Yeah, I'm more obsessed with artificial intelligence and other things. Hey, on that note, Apex, my man. I'm more interested in technical stuff. But do you think... Good evening, Apex. I'll be right back. 1 second, chaps. My fowl is making noises.
I'm going to need a quick catch up. This is about some legislation happened relating to Israel, apparently.
I think they're proposing a legislation to prevent local towns from like cities in England or the UK. I'm not sure from.
I know there was actually a Muslim city council in Michigan that they got elected, and they banned any expression of gay pride. And there's been a dividing reaction for that, as you can imagine. But the progressives seem to be heartbroken that Muslims are sticking to their faith, and
that's more local.
You know what I mean? But I mean, like they're smart Muslims. Like they play the progressives up, and that's a smart move, for sure, because. It used to be a left alliance. The Muslims, the LGBT, they're an oppressed minority, and they have rights and all that stuff, right?
God, it's still
but now it's kind of just eating itself alive.
John,
listen, all
cannibalizing its own.
All groups use other groups. I mean, it happens all the time.
Many
times they nominate a Jew to a job so that if he goes wrong, the Jews will be blamed.
That there are still LGBT pride protesters holding up signs saying Islam is a religion of peace and all of that stuff. They're still pro-Islamic signs.
The big question is who's playing who?
It's a religion of peace. I mean, you could say
will the Muslims play the progressives, or will the progressives subvert Islam? And it's like every week I find a different piece of evidence that makes me flip my position to such a degree where it's like I've just decided I won't know until I know. it's really hard to
progressivism will subvert Islam.
No,
I think
I disagree.
Islam is very potent, and it's least subvertive. Christianity has
It's not that.
has a huge history of subversion, whereas Islam hasn't been the faith anyway hasn't been subverted, and there is whoever has been grown up Muslim has a strong identity.
lie.
The demographics.
No, time out, John.
Hold on.
That's a historical
It's
lie.
not even to do with whether the progressives try to subvert. I mean, there are progressive Islamic groups out there who have LGBT members and all sorts of nonsense. But the fact is that when it comes to Europe, certainly, maybe not so much America, but the demographic changes and the flood of immigrants who are coming from heavily sort of conservative Muslim countries who come with heavily Muslim conservative Muslim ideas. They're
not sending their best, okay?
Yes.
Well, that as well. But the fact is that they're not going to be subverted by progressives and LGBT types. Maybe some of the ones who were raised in the West, in Germany and France and Britain, might be these secular Muslims. But the Muslims that are coming freshies off the boats, no, they're going to be hardline Muslims, and they're the ones who are going to push the agenda, because
the thing is that the children,
the secular types, are always the ones who are going to be on the chopping block, or they're just going to sit on the sidelines and be silent, whilst the Islamists, the fanatics take over.
Like for decades, the French have been telling us, "No, you make peace with the Muslims. Look, they're cute, they're good. Look how fluffy they are." And we told them, "No, it's bad news. You're gonna have it in your country if you're not careful." And now we're seeing it, and even when they see the proof, they will find a way to turn it against us. Just wait.
Pause. Time out. I want to rewind something. Banksy, it's actually the other way around. The fresh off the boats tend to be, unless you're talking about actual members of, say, ISIS or Al Qaeda, the average fresh off the boat tends to be way less stringent than their kids, mostly because their kids then have the reaction of, should I integrate, should I not? They find Western culture is empty, and double down on their parents and on their parents' attempt to say, no, you still need to speak Arabic at home.
No, not in America. You're looking at America. It's not true. In Europe, it's
Europe.
No. In Europe, they got millions. They're not like secularists. No.
No. I said
and also
the
they're very
kids become
traditional.
more radical. No, I'm saying the kids become more radical than the parents.
Well, the fact is, you're right,
the kids
they haven't. They have.
Kids split.
Well, no, it is true that they found
but in
that
what
actually
percentage?
second and third generation Muslims in Britain and certainly Britain anyway. The last report I saw was they are not secular or more secular than their parents. In fact, some of them are more radical.
Yeah.
So there is that a group that has grown. But what I will tell you is that I think Apex, I'm sorry, you have an old view of the migrants that used to come in the 80s and the 60s and 70s and 80s, where they wanted to become Westerners, they wanted to live a Western lifestyle. No, they're coming to live an Islamic lifestyle with Western benefits. That's what is happening now.
This is white flight now. This is literally the anthropology of white flight.
Yeah.
You are no longer.
It used to be like intellectual Egyptians that moved to London and Paris and all that sort of stuff. It's nothing like that now.
Precisely. You're not getting the doctors and the lawyers and the rocket scientists anymore. You're getting the laborers, the guy who came out of a farm, the dude who was literally baling hay on the back of a donkey, 2 months ago. Now he's
Amazon deliveries and all that sort of stuff.
Come out. That's if you're lucky. You're also getting the dregs and the criminals, and the adventurers and the useless men who have.
You get all the drug dealers, arm dealers. Where do the French have all these arms suddenly? I mean, how come there are grenade battles in Stockholm? I mean, you have to get it all the way up there. It doesn't grow on trees. So someone is, I've heard about Albanian gangs. I've heard about stuff in Turkey, Muslim Brotherhood, Iranians. They're all up, Iranians are helping the S&P break up the UK. But all the UK channels talk about Jews.
To answer, by the way, Connor Rafferty, National Populist, the question is not will progressives subvert Islam. The question is, will it subvert it in time sufficient that Islam, even if it wins, still ends up becoming gay and progressive? Or will Islam be able to somehow contain that over time?
That's what I said. I just
Islam doesn't have idolatry in it.
Well, that may be the case, but the thing of the pressure of modernity, you could argue the pressure of modernity since the Renaissance Enlightenment is what crushed Christianity. So why would the diasporic Muslims be immune to this?
I
don't
that's
see
what
that
I
in
believe.
Muslim countries.
I think the comfort of the West, the forced mixing that happens, whether you like it or not.
Yeah. But
will
even
erode it
they're
eventually.
saying thousands of Muslims in London. I lived in a very large 70% Muslim borough in London before I moved to Germany. And I saw examples of this day in, day out. They were obviously very pious Muslims, good Muslim boys, didn't miss the namaz in the morning. And there are lots of boys there just like on the weed, on the girls and stuff, until they said they're elders and they quickly pretended they were Muslim again. They were like part-time Muslims.
It's like that in the Middle East as well, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, is it? Okay, yeah.
I've seen
it in
yeah,
Egypt.
no. There's a lot. You bring them to a university, for example, in Israel, that is secular, away from their parents, and they'll start doing drugs. They'll start drinking alcohol. Not just the Christian ones. Who, okay, the Christian ones can legally do that because they're not Muslim, but also the Muslim ones.
Yeah.
But then you get any like inter-ethnic conflict, and they immediately revert back to we're Arab or we're Muslim, especially if they're both. Right?
Yeah, it seems tribal with the infighting, right? The division changes, but there's an externality threat, and suddenly they're Muslims again, right? Which is great. Which is it's almost like there are parallels, John. There's parallels in the collapse of oppression on Western Christianity, right? But then the question is fundamentalism. So if you argue, if you were a man who fears the creator, and you'd argue fundamentalism, I know my good brother Raven would, for example, then you would just say, well, then in that case, Islam should be more fundamental, and then it begs the deeper question. What's the role of fundamental Islam in the West? The answer to that must be it's purely imperial. If I follow the Sunnah and everything, then the job is to take all these lands for Allah, right? So you can argue that, but the only thing that would resist that is they would steamroll liberal, secular, atheist Christians over. They just won't steamroll hard right conservative Christians, right? Because that's where the opposition is, right, Raymond? There are going to be a lot of people just going to be, we reject the prophecy of Muhammad, and that's the end of it. Right, the rest is just war.
They'll just treat it as blasphemy, as it is.
Please raise your volume. Please raise your mic, Raymond.
Okay. Alrighty.
I love it when people tell me that Jews invented degeneracy.
How is that?
Well,
that's
like
much better. That's much nicer.
Okay.
Also,
they invented it. Yeah, I believe it was a basement in Tel Aviv where they sat and went, okay, how do we create degeneracy?
Jews invented invention.
Yeah.
Can we get it?
Of course, the Greeks and the Romans and all that. I mean, they actually documented it, and they have drawings of it.
Okay, thank you.
Judaism, I think, is the first religion we know to forbid it. Actually,
no, but
Christian artist by the name of Frederick Edwin Church, Heart of the Andes.
Nice to hear you again, Raymond. Sorry, man, I've had some domestics as you were. I just thought they
Oh, that's beautiful.
No stress. Oh yeah, no, it's Frederick is officially turned into one of my favorite artists of all time. Actually, I think.
But it really does look like The Voyage of Life, if you've ever seen that one.
Yeah,
it does. It's all in the same vein. I think it's all that same naturalist impressionist painting.
It's also very American.
Yeah,
I just remembered a little story. So why is Jerusalem so important to Islam? This was not the case in the past.
Oh God, this story's retarded.
Yes. Yeah. So what happened is there were two big kind of clans in the Arab world that were competing. There were I can't remember the names. The Abbasid, Umayyad, I forget. One was situated in the Saudi area, and one was in Damascus. And the guys in Damascus used to drink. They had whores. It was very degenerate lifestyle there. So the guys in Mecca said, "We're not allowing you to come here for the Hajj. So you are degenerates. You're not true Muslims." So they declared Mecca no more, and they said Jerusalem is now the new holy place. And that created that tradition. So degeneracy in Muslim world. There you go. They were all drunk.
I thought it was because the Prophet Muhammad, went to heaven on the very place where that mosque is.
That's what I thought as well. Like
that's a story. That's not in the Quran. So that's just a story.
Okay,
but
they believe that story. They believe the story. Or at least
Well,
they claim to believe that story.
That story was brought into light to service that thing, because it actually says in that story that.
I'm sorry, Musa. I'm going to defer to Joseph, the good man Joseph from the Israel Advocacy Movement. Why is Al-Aqsa yours? Says Joseph.
Al-Aqsa is in Saudi. It's not even in Jerusalem.
Allah promised that land to us.
No, I mean, if you read the Quran, it actually it's the other way around.
No. I tell you what, we don't take our religion from Zionists.
So, how did Muhammad come to be in Israel? How did he get there?
Buraq.
And what did Buraq do? What did it do?
Flew from Mecca to Quds.
So this is his claim to Israel. Muhammad flew on a magical horse, landed in Israel, and therefore it belongs to him. That's the argument. Why is Al-Aqsa?
Yes. Yes, actually. Chad, yes.
No, so the whole story is that Al-Quds is actually, it means the mosque at the edge. And it's a mosque that was at the edge of the town where Muhammad was. And he probably did ride on a horse or a donkey to get to that mosque. Because it was probably about a mile or so, a kilometer or two. So the story is true. Muhammad rode to a mosque on the edge of his town, but nothing to do with Israel.
He came on a donkey with tablets of hatred for all mankind. Continue.
It was just a normal day. He rode from one part of the town to another part. That's all.
What is it? What is it with the Abrahamic faiths that's always into donkeys?
Listen, don't disrespect the donkey. It's a very cute
Donkeys
animal.
are very powerful.
It is
very powerful.
It is a
Well,
regal
do you think it's a coincidence that DreamWorks, when they made Shrek, had the donkey that was talking?
One thing I wanted to say in the face of all this blasphemy, the Buraq is not a donkey. The Buraq is a winged Pegasus horse with a head and I think shoulders of a woman.
Yeah, it was a donkey.
Come on, Kingston. Are you arguing that
Haram.
the Messiah? Are you arguing that the Messiah is Shrek?
It was a goat.
Come on, Kingston. I need to know. Are you arguing that the Messiah is Shrek? He came on a donkey with tablets of hatred for all mankind.
Johnny Red Pill Seed is saying that this show is shite. What can we do to improve the show, Johnny?
I think the answer to the question is Bernoulli's equation, right? So I think if we understand how did Barack get there, I think it's very important to go to Bernoulli's equation. How did things fly, right? Okay, so I'm like, sorry guys, am I going to go like full geek? Because I'm geek, so I'm like, I want to compute Bernoulli's using.
He used that stuff they have in Star Trek. Don't they have like this thing in Star Trek when they go into this? No, I remember something.
I always find the symbolism of the donkey fascinating because if you remind yourself of what a donkey has always been used for, right? You understand that it is technically a humble creature who essentially its purpose in life is to work and to work hard. And there is something to be said about the spirit of understanding humility and understanding the necessity to work, and that work will be hard. And there is something to kind of appreciate about a donkey with the fact that it is essentially a beast of burden who bears the weight of others without complaint. And is considered a linchpin or a focal point. It's a pretty fascinating thing when you think about it. It just kind of occurred to me. I didn't really put much thought into it.
But why did Jesus need to ride on two donkeys?
Hey, have you ever had like?
It's a spare in case one breaks down.
I also never really thought about it.
There's a lot of
time to think about that one.
I have a confession. My first job before I left school was at the aeronautical engineering department in Imperial College, and we were studying aerodynamics of all sorts of creatures. So one donkey, two donkey,
Jesus was on a mission after all. He couldn't just say sorry I didn't turn up. My donkey broke down.
No. He was making a statement. He was making a statement. He was riding on both donkeys at the same time.
Oh,
I just like to retort Raymond's fart sniffing philosophication of the donkey.
The differences in volume are crazy.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I gotta
This is-
defend my
this
brother.
is-
I gotta defend my brother Raymond, man. There was a night that only he and I know about in the manger and stuff, and like the donkey means something different to us, right? We carry on.
Listen,
No, but,
I like a
like
different
the way he was like, oh, the symbolism of a donkey, of a beast of burden. Dude, the donkey is the cheapest vehicle at the time. It is the Skoda of the Middle Ages.
Why you
Okay,
gotta be
that's
so
what it
damn
is. It's
angry?
just
Why
that
you gotta
couldn't
be
afford
so
a
angry?
stallion.
Just
He'll
take
cook
it
the donkeys
easy.
in kebabs and stuff. You gotta watch him. Raven, I'm with you, bro.
Just musing.
Do you think? Do you think
My bad.
Do you think?
I won't do it again. My bad. Apparently, I offended.
Okay,
I
okay,
think-
time out. I think that the differences in audio volume are symbolic of the differences between the cultures on this panel.
Look, I apologize that I have a god mic tonight. My
Well, I have
microphone
I have a high quality mic here.
I actually have a cheap piece of shit I bought from Amazon, and it's like a wireless mic, effectively.
Oh,
that
no, don't
goes
use
to a
wireless.
phone.
I'm not
It's a
talking about
wireless
your
mic that goes to a
audio quality.
phone. And
I'm
I
not
just
talking about
have
your
to
audio
connect
quality.
it
I'm
to my
talking about your
computer.
volume.
Yeah, he's talking about your projection.
Yeah, the volume is always high in massage for some reason. I just don't know why.
Is mine high?
It was always
Okay,
way
I'll-
too high for the rest of the panel.
Yeah, people
Hold on, I'll
complain
turn
my
it down.
volume's high.
Yeah, yours is
I
high
actually
too.
think
Let's adjust.
No, I
John
did
and
actually. I
massage
actually do have it on high
volume
right now. Yeah.
Well,
You're
actually,
very loud, John.
John and
I turned it
massage,
down a
your
little
volumes
bit.
are fine. It's
Okay, I
actually
turned mine
Apex and
down.
Raymond that are actually too low. That's why I can't. I had to turn my volume up to maximum to hear them.
I just
I'm just trying
I just
to
think
prevent
sometimes
audio-
people
so-
just hate the bass of my voice.
So understand, I can actually.
You're
see,
quiet,
so
Ray.
all right, so I'm trying to tell you guys that I have an audio interface, and I can tell when I'm talking that I'm starting to audio clip, and I'm trying to eliminate.
It's the
audio
volume
clipping.
in the it's the volume in the app itself, like in the website.
No, I'm up
in
to
the
100.
settings.
I'm up to 180 on the actual website itself.
Oh, you're good
Wow.
now. You actually remarkably became so much better all of a sudden, Raymond.
Well,
I
I'm
can actually
putting
hear
it up to the point where my audio interface is telling me that I'm audio clipping. So I'm wondering how shitty the quality
Which
actually
interface is
No,
it?
no. What? Yeah,
I have
the
a
problem
Focus,
is-
right?
Oh, I have the same.
That's not
I have
bad.
the
That's
Focusrite.
not bad. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
I have
just
a
that
Focusrite.
the thing is, you
Yeah,
guys
they're
got to
pretty good.
realize there is another interface in between all this, which is StreamYard. StreamYard also manipulates your volume control.
Yeah,
And
yeah, I
I
understand
think
that.
that's
I turn them all
worth
up.
calling out.
Don't even
Yeah, I'm actually max. I'm at 200 right now.
This is how you win debate. Just up the volume, right?
Yes.
Right, it just
Exactly.
gets so loud.
If I can talk louder than you, clearly I'm right.
Look, I just came back from a wedding that was
How the
very
streets
loud.
roll.
My ears are spent.
My first debated Columns a few times, they just kept speaking louder and over him, and he started getting upset with me. That was a long
No.
time ago.
My degree
Yeah,
of correctness
I remember that.
raises with the volume.
How you doing, Columns, man? Long time no see.
Yeah, long time no see, man. You're back. Holy fuck, what happened?
Like a drive-by, man. Just a drive-by.
Just a drive-by stream.
Oh, yeah.
Drive-by stream. So you don't stream regularly anymore.
No, it's like, this is my Paris edition, right? So I just stream. So, how are you doing? Genuine, I haven't met Columns. Columns is my favorite Dutch liberal, and I met one of these panels a while ago. We've argued about a lot of things. We have seen eye to eye occasionally. It's nice to have
Okay.
a liberal on. No big fan of Islam, John?
Yeah, instead of saying free Palestine, we should be saying free the Dutch farmers.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, it was a big shit show with the Dutch farmers, but actually, I mean, compared to France, I mean, we're doing pretty good, right?
Yeah, France is your law and order issue,
Yeah, I mean, like, I wonder sometimes with France. I mean, yeah, it is the migrants issue, but also, I mean, the French do like to protest.
But it's not just in France. It's also in Switzerland.
It's not the
also in
French.
Belgium. You know, it's spread to both Belgium and Switzerland. So it's coming.
Yeah, but
It's not the French protesting.
There's also there's like a mock protest in Montreal the other day. They were trying to mimic the riots. So
I mean,
Conops could be onto
they
something.
do
It's like a
spread.
French
I mean, like,
cultural
they're
kind of thing.
infectious. Yeah, but I
Yeah.
mean, protests are infectious by nature, right? So
Yeah,
of course, I'm not denying the demographic issue here. I'm just saying that it is also something that is sort of within French culture. If they protest a bit more.
It's nothing to do
generally.
with French culture.
Well, I think it does.
No.
To some degree.
Well,
I
no,
do
well,
think
because
to
well, because
some
of the French
degree it's
Revolution.
alienation of the big migrant community that's already there.
No.
But
No.
things can be multifaceted.
Nope.
There could be more factors
Nope.
involved than just one.
Nope.
Nope.
No. I'm just gonna fully agree with Masad here. Nope.
I think most
Oh, no,
He's louder, so he's
every
right.
time I want to catch a plane, to France, there's protests there. There's protests. There was a Gilets jaunes.
Yeah, but these
Protest
are
is
not
normal.
is
Different
seen
from
the
this.
guy-
This
There
is
is
not a
in general
protest.
more
seen the
protests
machine
in
guns?
France.
This is a race war.
That's
seen the
fine. Let them protest. They can protest. No, that's not a problem. You can protest all you
I
like.
think
Stand
you
with your
forgot my-
signs, shout all you like.
Yes,
but
but
once
I
you
think
start
you've got-
burning
have you
people's
seen the machine-
homes,
and you-
that's
have you
not a
seen them, like,
protest. That's a
shooting-
war.
This is a race war.
Shooting machine guns.
Look,
you know,
all
they
I'm
got-
saying is when France burns or when France has a race war, Europe pays attention. I'm just saying. Notice something.
You infidels clearly don't realize that the people of France, the migrants, require iPhones and Nike trainers in order to fight racism. You don't realize that
I'm just
I
saying,
need this
the race wars
56-inch
are around
TV
here.
in order to fight racism and bigotry across Europe.
Hey, no war but class war, man.
Look, if the race war continues for another month, the AfD might be the #1 party in Germany. So,
Well, you guys always say that, and it never happens. It never happens. I mean,
it's
Well,
happening
notice he
right
didn't say
now.
it will. He said it might.
Well, yes,
Currently,
but
they're at
clearly
21%.
clearly won't. Like, you want to bet? You want to take a bet?
It was the same. Like,
So
it was the
we
same,
get
I'm
like
saying
10,000 euros on this one.
I'm saying I don't have 10,000 euros. I'm a broke student.
Oh,
right
that's
now,
too bad.
unfortunately.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
okay.
I'm willing to bet 10,000 euros on it.
Oh, that's too bad.
He's studying complicated stuff. He's going to be a rich guy soon.
Yeah. Maybe once I have the degree. Let me tell you something though. My specific claim is the longer the race war and the worse the shit is happening in France, specifically relating to migration, the Germans are looking at, and the rest of
Apex, I got your back, bro. Just having been the guy in Berlin and watching it. This is the polar pause in Germany right now. The AfD.
Yeah.
Just number 2, Connor. Number 2 right now over the SPD. And
Yeah, but we had
and look at that.
And of course, AfD is pro-Israel. Always remember, those that love Israel love their own people. All the pro-Israel guys are pro their own people.
Well, Ralph, we had the PVV as the second biggest party for a very long time. It just doesn't become the biggest party. And
no, not necessarily. I agree with you, Collins. I'm with you on this side, but because they're all N-party coalitions, if you look at Italy, look at Sweden, look at everything else, the AfD are poised to be a kingmaker if they sustain into the next German election, because they're just now larger than every other off the traffic light coalition in Germany.
There might be also be a cordon sanitaire, which has been.
Well, I think it was more like we should look to Israel for inspiration. Go, if Benjamin Netanyahu says, "Well, no one wants to form an alliance with me, and I just got the rest of them," the AfD could say, "Hey, no one wants an alliance to me, so we'll just hang on a second. We'll just become the." And right now, Alice Fido has put a name down for chancellor. So if Alice Fido in a direct election is chancellor of Germany, I mean, there's going to be some changes. So I've got to back Apex here. If things continue with the assumption that things continue as they are,
Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. I mean,
look at Weimar Germany. It was. You look at Weimar Germany. It was inflation and degeneracy.
Yeah, but don't forget, guys. Like for example, until 2 years ago, we had people being blown to smithereens by suicide bombers on the streets, and that didn't change people's minds. So I mean,
yeah, I agree with you, but I'll tell you why. And this is a brutal reality. People getting blown up, while terrifying, doesn't like it's a stochastic event. Paris burning due to a race war that is ongoing, and that's spreading to basically
but
every.
Paris was burning because of the protest of the Gilets jaunes as well.
No, but those are like things that other Europeans can understand as a French thing.
Okay, well,
this
like
is not
I just think it's wishful thinking.
Thing.
I think it's just not correct analysis. I think it's not sober.
Well, just like in 1930s Germany, I'm sure there are plenty of Germans that would scoff at the idea of the National Socialists ever getting into power, but lo and behold,
Time out. The National Socialist
very
Party
different
is currently in
situation.
power.
Not everything is analogous to.
The Greens are currently in power in Germany.
The Greens are more Nazi than.
I know.
Look, all I have to say is give me liberty, iPhone and Nike trainers, or give me death.
Why are you loud again? Why are you so loud again?
That's how he wins his arguments.
French polls are like right now.
He also probably does put like the microphone into his mouth when he's talking. No, I'm just kidding.
I
It
wonder
just
what the
sounds
French
like
polls are like. Ralph, do
I have
you
a
have
buddy
any
that
data
does
on
that.
French
I
polls?
was just looking for this image because I was going to just check a quote, just to throw in some balance here about those talking about Germany and democracy. But have a quote from this chap called Joseph. It says, "We enter Parliament in order to supply ourselves in the arsenal of democracy with its own weapons. If democracy is so stupid as to give us free tickets and salaries for this bear's work, that is its affair. We do not come as friends, nor even as neutrals. We come as enemies. As the wolf bursts into the flock, so we come." So it doesn't require an absolute democratic majority, as I think Master Ori is pointing out, to have quite effect. If you'd asked me 5 years ago, Columns, for that Italy and Sweden would be led by far-right leaders, I'd be like, statistic, And the AfD is doing, the people in Germany, I'll tell you this, Columns, for that, the people in Germany are getting extremely discontent. And God bless the Germans for things like their frugality. Constantly I hear this from Germans, why are we paying for an American war in Ukraine again? Why would we
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Yeah,
Why the fuck are Americans paying for
all
this war?
all the
country
AfD
that's
needs to
actually much
do is
more
become socially acceptable.
analogous to that, which is Austria, right? So, like, I mean, Austria didn't change. I mean, they had like 50-50 between the FPÖ and the sort of like mainstream parties. That didn't fundamentally change Austria either. And I mean, the numbers are much higher than in any other country that you can think of.
Yeah, but they don't have the depth of the size of Germany. If Austria went or Switzerland went, okay, you'd feel it. But even Italy and Sweden made waves. With Germany, you're talking about the number one economy in
Yeah, but I don't think Germany will go that way because they will also
the Germans getting really upset. I don't think they'll go there. I don't think they'll go there culturally. You're right. They won't go there culturally or in terms of values, but they're getting.
Well, okay, it's all about the AfD becoming socially acceptable.
Well,
no, but it's also balancing behavior, right? So, for example, if the AfD is going to be the largest party in the poll and it's close to the election, you know what the rest of Germany is going to do? They're going to vote for the other person. You understand what I mean?
Right, no, I appreciate it. I'm very into.
No, Tomat. Then you have a two-story state. You have that's one of two things happen.
I don't suffer from psephological syphilis, and I do ask the Germans both anecdotally and watch the data. I've noticed anecdotally, which is like the canary in the coal mine, the Germans are very deliberative culture. And you're right, Columns. They're not morally, culturally going to throw away their stuff. They're getting really upset about things that matter to the Germans, like spending a lot of money really badly on things that aren't giving them.
That's such a German concern right now.
The German shopkeeper, she keeps saying to me, it's like, yeah, things are more pricey and everything's getting better. She's like, but we didn't pick this war and the Americans aren't paying for it. So it's almost
sure, but
why are we paying for this shit? Right?
Sure, Ralph. But what you'll see is much more, I would say, like some balancing behavior, but also the co-opting of certain points by mainstream parties, and then moving a little bit to the right. What I always object to is this state of, like, when there's some thing going on somewhere, it's almost like it's the end of the world and everything is going to change. And
that's just not happening.
I've seen the world too long.
I would be Collins. There's no day of the rope. There's not going to be an end right. No, that's not happening. Right? That's not going down. But there could be substantive changes.
I mean, there will be a day of the pillow, but that's just called time.
Right? That's not going to happen. We'll be warming up ovens. We won't be doing anything like that. But there might be a lot of things that will be very disruptive. Like
time out, Ralph. There will be a day of the pillow, though, but that's just a function of time. That's the function of time.
There's no cap of the saints in any metaphorical sense, but I'm just looking, and I don't see that. The one funny thing is, Columns, being a few years in Berlin now, and obviously I'm quite close to some of the politics here. It's like I can just watch the barometer of the steady state mean values of people saying things that Germans, you know this, Columns, you're Dutch, right? The Germans, first of all, don't like to say very much about anything. Germans are pretty insular. They're like, not my business, so therefore I don't care. Now, increasingly, they've been grumbling a lot. And you don't see the Germans grumble. The Germans are grumbling. They're first grumbling economically, then they're grumbling about incompetency. And then there's the strange irony that all their life, the Greens and the hippies and the Link all said they're for world peace, and now they're warmongering. And the Germans are like, I thought we went for peace, right? We didn't. So the current coalition, so you might get a protest vote. But protest votes we can see, Columns, in Sweden and Italy are very transformative. Imagine
your average voter will only vote for left when it seems convenient at the time. But when the self-perceived interest changes, like everything's getting expensive or there's so much crime that I can't avoid it, then they will just go to the
Jimmy, I
legal
was
situation.
surprised, even though I know Germany really well, traveling a lot of my life. I was surprised in the last few years watching just the depth of the Protestant Calvinistic frugalism in the Germans, right? So the German will hold up the line in the supermarket to make sure he doesn't give you more change than you need, right? He's optimizing his coins. He's very wealthy, but he'll still optimize. And you see the Germans now grumbling, going like, we're paying for this shit. Because suddenly like the auto milk is twice the price. Things that the Germans can afford are going up, heating bills, and the Germans are super efficient. And the kid is going like, why are we paying for this shit? Oh, because we're fighting a proxy war. Right? So
yeah, and
Yeah.
America destroyed the fucking gas pipeline. Yeah.
Just the general incompetency is what gets the Germans really. That's what pisses them off. Like for the Brits, it's not standing in line, right? Not line. For the Germans, it's like being stupid with money. It's like a big thing for them. And you're watching the economy is not looking great, right? I mean,
Yeah, but the mainstream governments have been incompetent with pretty much everything. So if you see how much they squandered the wealth, if you see how much crazy deals they made with big billionaire companies, if you see how much of the wealth in Europe is now controlled by a few, as opposed to 20 years ago, that will bring much more anger to these mainstream parties than even the immigration issue at the moment.
It has implication. The German
the
minister just came out.
socioeconomic
No, but the
conditions
German
are
minister came
more
out 2 days ago.
important.
The German minister came out 2 nights ago to sustain the projected current central bank projections of the German economy will require 1.5 to 1.8 million migrants a year. What do you think the populist response is going to be to another million migrants being shipped in to maintain GDP run rates?
No, I think there's a certain I think there's a certain breaking point in which young Germans, among young Germans at least,
That's a
I'm gonna be
buckle
straight up
point,
about
right?
this.
Apex, it's a buckle point looking straight in your face. So that's
Yeah,
what
no, it's literally just a punctured equilibrium, and the moment you reach it, at least among young Germans, they're just gonna turn to their parents and say, "Look, it's either day of the pillow or you let us not lose our fucking country." Because I mean, just talking to young Germans, it's painful. Now, granted,
Yeah,
a
but
lot
you're talking to people who are like 100,000 euros in debt or 60,000 euros because of student debts. You're talking to people that have other issues besides this migrant issue. And by the way, when things just grow slowly or incrementally, it's very difficult to object because I mean things have changed already. And
Look, the only reason the AFD hasn't doubled tomorrow because it has basically among the youth wing no women, if we're being honest. The only reason that hasn't happened yet is because AFD men don't have particularly, I guess you could say, high status perception among Germans.
Oh, definitely. And they kicked out the more moderate wing, the Frau Petri ring.
No, that's not why. It's like if they tomorrow force their young boys to go to the gym and force them to learn English and force them to learn how to behave. The short answer is within like 2-3 years, they could all get girlfriends, which means they could double the size of the party's youth wing overnight.
Yeah,
Well,
even just the average guy who
I
just
think
lives
it's
on.
also just have to do with the messaging, which is usually pretty crass, not mainstream. I think even though they're quite big now, and they
It's
could
not about
be.
messaging, it's about aesthetics. The aesthetics of it is that it's a low class party of people who are doing something that's a bit too un-German. Which is
Oh
say,
yes, well, but it's probably also like the messaging as well. Usually, these parties they say things that are quite outside.
But then again, did you know the AFD is like the second most foreign party in the of all the parties? It's just that all of its foreigners are like Poles and Russians and Romanians.
Yeah, but I mean, what's your point? I mean, like the PVV is also supported by lots of minorities. I mean,
No, but it's the second most foreign party in Germany of the
Yeah,
major
but also
parties.
the point is it's not a one party winner takes all that matters. The current German government is a 3-party coalition. The AFD is CD is holding number one. The question is, does the AFD become kingmaker?
Well, but that makes it even more difficult because what we had in the Netherlands and also what we had in Belgium was a cordon sanitaire. That means these parties could not collaborate with any other parties because they were
Yeah,
isolated.
but
We will
I
not
can
work
explain
with
why
this
that's actually a
government.
good thing. That's a good thing because fundamentally that means that they've recognized that there is no opposition except you.
No, because
Which
we had
means
the situation.
which means every single time the government fucks up, you can say listen, those guys are all the same. And you know that because they're all part of the Cordon Sanitaire, which means you've locked in your guys. Your guys now know, yeah, it's all rigged. But simultaneously, every single temporary convert you make is now a permanent convert as they realize, wait a minute, there's only two sides here.
Okay,
The AFD and everyone else.
how would you describe, for example, Geert Wilders, for example, the largest opposition party in the Netherlands, or until recently at least, that's been screaming from the sidelines that the government was fucking things up for decades, and they have yet to have any significant impact in politics.
But you can't extrapolate from the Dutch situation to the Belgian or the French. Each of them is different.
Yeah.
Of course they are, but I mean, there is some historical precedent for it. So if you're saying like, "Oh, this automatically will happen," like I have my doubts.
Right now,
you're reasonable
right
enough to know that you should have your doubts too, Ralph.
If the election was held tomorrow, between the between the VVD and the BBB, you could have 50% of the entire Dutch vote between those two parties.
Yeah, but that's the Farmers' Party now. Then we're talking about a different party now.
No,
and
the BVD. No, between those
close
two.
down all mosques or repatriate all Muslims.
Yes, but would they be willing to go into coalition with the VVD?
Yeah, they might, because they're a more sensible party. So if you're talking about the PVV or the Farmers' Party, they're very different parties. One, the Farmers' Party might actually win and might actually change some things because they have a sort of more reasonable message, a message that's much more congenial to the Dutch population.
What do you mean, Conor? So you're saying in roundabout ways they won't be very illiberal, right?
Well, I mean, you have to recognize that the populations of Europe are not fundamentally illiberal. If you want to sell a very illiberal message, it's not going to go down well.
I agree with you, Carlos, 100%. They're not going to sacrifice certain liberties or certain core values or virtues, but they just need enough parameters for the other values or virtues to cause these tipping points. How do we know this is true? You play the clock backwards, T-1, T-3, T-5, T-8 years, and then forward project. 10 years ago, we wouldn't have seen Sweden, Italy, France, Spain being in the positions there. So it looks like these trends are approaching in a monotonic fashion in a particular way, and they're buckling in different ways with different parts of the story. But the general idea is it looks like inefficiency in Europe and migration is not the number one issue. You're right, Connor. Number one, again, is health and the economy. People care more for their pocket and their well-being. But migration is impacting those two things.
I agree. And I think we don't actually disagree. I think the other people on the panel have a bit more of a, I don't know, like a radical,
transformative pillow kind of feeling. You're trying to say, right?
I think they're actually agreeable on it. I think there will be long-term social pressures that will move governments to the right. But how much of a significant change that's going to mean, that is still to be debated.
Yeah, you're not going to affect change through the political system, through voting, and because it in a way it's too controlled, because you're trying to, like, you are trying to get your message across, but obviously these fringe parties can only go so far. So I always just activate. I always say, do community work and do dollar that way, and sway the culture that way, as opposed to politics.
You're right, John, but they've got a partial influence, culture, the economy, and politics. But in the political win, if you said, "Oh, that couldn't happen 3 years ago," you told me Italy would be run by Meloni, and you say, "Well, what power does Meloni have?" Let me give an example of Meloni's policies that are very conservative and right wing. That Nietzsche having a
time out, Ralph. Before you do, can we get our
social security? How can I say? She's got to go social security to the native population. This is a right wing white nationalist. She's saying, no, I'm cutting social security to white Italians because I'm going to get rid of the migrants by making white Italians do all these social jobs. That's a very, very national socialist principle. And she's implementing it. She's cutting the European bureaucratic state in Italy and therefore effectively raising wages for jobs with the view of moving migrants out and getting young Italians to have higher wage economies. That you would, 5 years ago, if you told me any Italian PM could do that, I think you're mad.
Can we get F's in the chat for Silvio Berlusconi?
Hey, bunga.
Yeah, no, Jan, seriously, like the man died, what was it, 2 weeks ago, a week ago, and it is actually a loss for the
Banksy,
European
this is
right.
Banksy's specialty. Banksy, you said bunker
Oh, I
bomb.
thought it was a loss when the Unabomber died.
Wait, what did he ever do for the
That was a
European right?
that was
What
a
did
huge
he
loss.
ever
Yes.
do for the European right? How did he change anything? I mean, if you're reading into restriction of migration, I mean, like he did not change anything. He I actually
Someone had
accelerated the
to
process that was
lead
already going on.
the Italian right. Someone had to lead the Italian right from the wilderness of Mussolini into basically being the most developed right wing of any
A
major
right
European
wing,
country.
it's basically like a center right politician who's like extremely corrupt. I don't know how that helps your
Yes,
case.
but he also enabled Italy's current political situation. There is no Meloni without Berlusconi.
What is happening in all these countries is that they are signed to multiple international treaties. That means they cannot stop the immigration unless they withdraw from all these treaties. And instead of talking about Jews, what the right wing in these countries should do is push to withdraw from all these treaties that force you to
Mossad,
accept these immigrants.
you've seen enough memory TV to know what they need to say.
Can I don't want to derail the conversation, but I do want to ask a question, and this is just sort of out in the air. Now, I understand that a lot of people are going to respond to this one. The question is, given what we think we understand, is a system that is behaving in the interest of a singular group inherently corrupt? Because we talk about the thing like corruption is fascinating in that corruption itself can look like an inherently unjust system, but you then have to also understand you're trying to approach the perspective of somebody who's behaving in a corrupt manner, and to their own mind, they're not really corrupt. They're serving the interests of those around them, which is a weird thing, because if you think about a nationalist perspective, because if you think about a nationalist perspective,
Silvio Berlusconi helping his family members and being corrupt.
Exactly. If you think about a nationalist perspective now, the entire idea of a nation is a massive family. So if you have a political system and an economic system that is inherently serving a singular interest group, in this case it would be an ethnicity, is that not, from the perspective of everybody outside looking in, is that not an inherently corrupt system? Because, and that's one of the weird things you're dealing with.
Then you have to get into multi-generational families, because I'm thinking of the Rothschilds and the George Soros of the current day, who are not even, they're not even interested in making money anymore. They're interested in control and controlling people through data mining and through manipulation in the media and starting these color revolutions. Some people are even saying these riots in France are some sort of like preamble to what's going to happen in the States in 2024, but that's to be seen.
Which minority is it happening for the benefit of?
Look, all I wanted to just quickly say is that Berlusconi will be sorely missed. He was a great man, clearly a man of integrity and not at all corruptible. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the best of planners, and hopefully he will be nestled in the bosom of Allah right now.
Look, I heard him speak about Angela Merkel, and I was sold.
Well, he was a friend of Israel, so.
Oh, is that the standard? If something's like hopelessly corrupt, we still is a friend of Israel, then
yes, that's the standard. Yeah,
that is Mossad's standard. Have you not met Mossad?
Well, yeah, I thought like he might have like, I don't know, like could get beyond his parochial point of view and also know that there are other people in the world.
I don't think it's necessary. I think once I know that, I used to think like you, but I then discovered this amazing tool that filters all the junk. All I have to do is see someone's position about Israel, and the rest I can assume. It works great. It literally never fails.
It'll give you a great knowledge about the Tibetan question, doesn't it?
I couldn't hear you, Conops. Hello?
He said about the Tibet question.
The Tibet?
Yeah, I get that. You're.
Do they have like one of the largest freshwater reserves in Asia?
No, the Israel thing about Tibet.
Oh, the Israel thing about Tibet. Oh, okay.
I don't understand the question.
As in
I don't know,
your
he's not
Israel
saying-
test, the Israel test that you're applying. Apply that to the Tibet issue. Is China in the right or is Tibet in the right? Go.
I'm talking about politicians or commentators. If they're
Yeah. So like, okay, the Tibetans are very clearly led by the Dalai Lama, and the Chinese clearly by the party, which is clearly currently led by Xi Jinping, right? And
Right.
before him, Hu Jintao. And
What is
before
their
him-
position on Israel? I don't need all this story. Just tell me the position
Okay,
on Israel.
well, I don't know.
Well, then when you know, tell me, and I'll tell you the answer.
Chinese people are pro-Israel, aren't they?
No, it's not
Or
that.
are
He's
they- or
pulling
they
it.
wanna
He's
use
trying to pull a parallel. He's trying to pull a parallel between Israel, Palestine, and Tibet and China, as in.
No. It's nothing to
China
do with
being
Israel, Palestine. No, it's nothing.
No.
to do with Palestine.
He's pulling a parallel, which
There's no
is
parallel.
the one in wrong.
Well, so much for that question.
There's no parallel here.
Oh,
there's
then
no
I
history.
misunderstood.
Well,
There's
look,
no
it's
history
ve-
of
it's very simple.
anti.
It's very
There's no history of a religion that is opposed to the Tibetans in the West. There's no. I'm talking about the West. In China, I don't know how the politics there go, but in the West, this works like a charm. Just works great. Just try it. It works all the time.
No, Mossad. I think you may have.
Don't argue. Just try it. Try it. Give me an example. Yeah, just try it. Choose a person. Choose a politician.
before you buy it.
Choose a politician. Check their position in Israel and see if I'm right. Just check it. Why are you arguing?
Regardless,
You're like the girls on Fashion Feet telling me why you don't like
view it as
something.
the
Just go and
exact
try it.
opposite, kind of in a way. Sometimes.
Subhanallah, fresh and fit are halal.
regardless.
You're arguing with reality.
Good,
It's just a
good
fact.
question.
Anyone who's anti-Israel is anti their own nation. It's really simple. In the West, this rule
I'm
never
anti-Israel
fails.
because it's a vassal. It's not they don't actually value sovereignty. It's just an international organization run out of
That's a lot
a
of
land they call
nonsense.
Israel.
That's a lot of nonsense. You have no idea what you're talking
Did you say Israel is an international organization?
You sound
Isn't that the point of a
like
nation?
a joke,
It's all
like a
currency
sketch.
and it's all
You sound like a
code,
TV
it's all
sketch.
code, it's all-
I'm
Yeah,
trying to
you lost
explain
me there,
how
Vance.
stupid people. If I wanted to do a sketch to explain how stupid people are, I would use what you just said. Israelis would laugh. Do you understand how silly you sound?
So how does Israel get an ISO code and a country code?
It's amazing the stuff people come up with. It's just so crazy. Like, Americans blame me. I blame it that they fought wars for us. I never heard of a single war that
Are you
America fought
American
for
or
Israel.
Canadian, John? Just I want to
But
test
I
Mossad's
mean,
Canadian.
don't the people
You're
who
Canadian,
are
okay, hang on a
obsessed
second,
with
hold on.
Israel?
Let me test Mossad's thesis. So, John, if Mossad is true, you can't love. If you don't love Israel, you don't support Israel. You can't support Canada. So here's a quick question to you: what matters more to you, Canada?
Oh,
or
okay.
Islam?
Sorry, who am I supposed to? I'm supposed to support Israel in order to be Canadian or Canadian nationalist or something?
No, I
that
said
is
everyone-
Mossad's thesis.
everyone-
And hang on a second,
everyone
that
is
is Mossad's thesis.
anti-Israel.
So if Mossad is right, John, I'm going to test if you really are for your nation, Canada. Would you rather have Canada nation or a caliph of Islam that spans the entire North American continent?
Of course you have Islam.
Well, I did say the Shahada 3 years ago, so.
Yeah, that is. So how do you do it, man?
If you don't like
Tell me
Israel,
about that.
you're an enemy
Tell
of
me about
Canada.
that.
I'm right
Tell me
as
about
always.
that.
Mashallah,
Are you now still
mashallah,
Muslim?
brother John, mashallah.
Are you still a
My
Muslim,
rule-
Vance, or are you now a
my-
Christian
The
again?
Houris
never
are
fails, I
waiting
told
Peace
for
be
you.
upon all the
It
chat.
never
Peace be upon all
fails.
the chat.
Anyone who is
John,
anyone who
John,
is
the
an enemy
Houris
of
are waiting
Israel
for you.
is an enemy of his own people.
Allah is
Always,
truly with
no
you.
exception. Not one in history. It doesn't exist.
Okay,
It doesn't
so,
exist.
so John,
Mashallah, brother
I'm
John.
very curious. I'm very curious, John. So you said the Shahada 3 years ago. I know you sort of backtracked on this, but are you still Muslim, or Christian, or Jewish, or Hindu? Because you sort of changed.
I
a
never
lot.
backtracked on
Astaghfirullah, what's
anything. You
your
just
have with
misunderstand the
Permanent
faith.
identity crisis.
I recognize all the prophets. I recognize all the Abrahamic prophets in John, Luke, Matthew.
I can tell you why this rule
And then
works.
so I
can
read some.
explain to you why it works.
I read some Bible verses, and then people
Okay,
mistaked
this
it
is
as like
boring.
I'm Christian again.
This is boring. I can tell you why this rule works instead. It's really simple.
Why is it
If you
boring?
believe, okay, because it is. The rule works because if you deny the Jewish people a nation, you can also deny the Greeks a Greek nation, the French a French nation, and the English an English nation. That's why it works. And that's why all the lefties wave Palestinian flags, because Israel is a symbol of nationalism.
Well, Israel's a Zionist project, is it not?
What does
it
it
was
mean?
basically
Zionist
it was
project?
like it was made up in the post World War II era, basically.
No.
It's
made up
the Jewish diaspora, and basically they fought a whole bunch of Palestinians, and
Okay, this is already boring.
Say, oh, this
Why
is
is
our
this
land
question
now,
so
right?
long?
No, it's a Zionist kind of international.
My great
International organization.
No,
it's a very young. It's not even 100 years old. It's not even an ancient nation.
No.
It's a new nation.
No.
John, my great grandparents and great great grandparents, depends on which ones, moved to this country before the founding of the state of Israel, before the 1940s, in the 1930s and 1910s, in that era. There were Jews who
Doesn't
moved
matter.
beforehand. And the reason they moved there is because we've been attached to this land for 3,000 years.
I'm sorry.
We have documents. We have documents that say the name Israel.
I mean that
hold on.
that strip of land, you call Israel, has been occupied by.
We have documents that state the name Israel is over 2,000 years old.
Guys, relax. I think Ralph is trying to say something.
You wouldn't have a modern state today if it wasn't for Britain.
No, despite Britain.
Guys, I can't hear Ralph. Ralph is talking.
Guys, one at a time, guys. So Genesis 12:1. What do you mean 100 years, John Vance, or 1,000 years? Genesis 12:1. The Lord has said to Abraham, to you, go from your country, your people, and your father's house to the land I will show you, and I will make you into a great nation. I will bless you. Those are the title deeds of the Jewish people to the land of Israel.
There's also external documentation from other nations.
Well, I'm talking about the modern state as it is, like the Star of Renfrew. You use the Star of Renfrew as your national flag.
Why?
It's not the Star of David. It's the Star of Renfrew. It's very deceptive. It has nothing to do with Abrahamic principles. It has to do with an international organization of Zion.
International organization of Zion. So let me ask you a question.
Zion.
It's unbelievable. This nonsense people believe.
What's that star? What is it? The Star of David or the Star of Renfrew? You tell me. Their national flag.
Where did the
look up the Star of Renfrew, the certificates of it.
Bro, let's say
it doesn't matter.
What I'm saying is, where did the
It doesn't matter. Come on.
Guys, hold on. Ralph is talking.
I'm going to start going to mute mode. I'm asking John, where did the Zionist movement get their moral legitimate claim for the Jewish homeland? Where do you think the Zionists got it from? Where did the Zionists get the moral principle that these people called the Jews needed a
Zionism is over 2,000 years old.
Did they make that up, or did that just come on? Or do you know the artifacts in Israel are 3,000?
Well, obviously they have their whole narrative that they're the chosen people in all the Abrahamic texts. So
nothing to do with that. It's nothing to do with that.
It's
nothing to do with that. John, you're talking rubbish. You're just talking rubbish that you picked up online.
Look up the Star of Renfrew. Look at the Star of Renfrew.
It doesn't matter. I've already looked up all
it's your national. It does matter.
No, it doesn't.
Yes, it does.
Can I ask you?
No, it doesn't.
Ask you a simple question.
You don't decide what matters to Israelis. We decide.
Fuck Israelis for most.
Actually, I really care about Israel, honestly.
No, obviously not.
I'm indifferent to Israel.
Okay,
yeah, I can tell.
What is your definition of Zionism, actually, John? Because
that'll be interesting.
It's a international organization that runs basically out of Israel and has tentacles in all of the different
what is the
nations
normal
of the world to
so who is the head of Zionism?
Who's
the head to defend Israel and to defend the organization.
Who's the head of Zionism?
I don't even think there's. It is a complex thing. You get two Jews in a room. You have three opinions, right?
So it's a bit like American patriotism. There's lots of Americans that organize and fight for the rights of America to exist.
So it's
It's a bit like that, yeah. And there's international people all over the world that protect the American interests.
Please forgive me. I just don't know. I don't know Paleo Hebrew, but in England, from the Oxford Dictionary, Zionism now, a movement that was originally begun in Torah, established an independent state for the Jewish people. Zionism is the idea that the Jewish people want their own state.
So if you deny the Jewish people a state, you deny all nations a state. So you are a globalist, non-frontier type of guy.
I just want to point out, in Exodus, every single year, ever since we finished the Exodus story, ever since we closed the Torah, Jews are required to reread the entire story of Exodus. And at the very end of the story, we are to say, next year in Jerusalem. Now, we've been saying that every year since closing the Torah, even the years we're in Jerusalem.
Yeah.
Okay, so what does that tell you about how the Jews view Jerusalem?
And also, maybe the clue, maybe the name is the clues in the name. You know, Jew. Where do you think the name Jew, the word Jew, comes from, John? Yes. Do you know
What is
the
the Jewish people?
Yeah,
what
is their name? I don't know. Like there's different names for God.
Yeah, no.
What is the etymology of Jew?
Have you heard of a place called Judea?
Okay.
Yeah, it's what you call West Bank. It's actually called Judea. It was renamed by. It was renamed by Jordan in 1948. Between the year about 2000, between 500 BC and 1948, it was called Judea. And in 1948,
I mean, you can tell your narratives all you want, but
it's not a narrative, it's a
they're
fact.
just sectarian narratives at this point. You know what I mean? They're just sectarian naratives.
Nope, I'm just stating facts.
They've done this sectarian kind of religious battle.
I'm just stating facts.
Get political
John, I'm just stating facts. I'm just stating facts.
That's what Zionism does, right?
No, I'm just stating facts.
Interpret some Bible verses or Torah verses.
No, I don't believe in Bible verses. I'm just stating facts.
I mean, Israel would eventually. Some people actually think that Israel would expand out to Syria. Would you before that?
Think that. Some
you probably have to do that through America. I don't know. I don't know. If America is strong, like he said, if he needs a strong America for a strong Israel, what if America gets like ultra nationalist, and you have these Christian Zionists that come in and expand the nation?
John. Somebody else is talking.
We're all grown-ups here. Again, I'm supporting you, John. Here, you said it's just a narrative. From the Oxford English Dictionary again, a spoken and written account of connected events of a story.
He wants to destroy Canada. Don't you get it?
It's a story. It's a storytelling. It can be fiction or non-fiction.
Are stories all false?
It's a fiction or non-fiction. It's a neutral term. It can be fiction or non-fictional narrative. I'm saying it's a fictional narrative.
John,
I don't need to believe in it. That's your reality. I believe in it. Other Muslim countries don't believe in it.
John,
they do actually.
Sorry, Ralph.
Languages, hang on, Banksy. But narrative in the English language, in English, does not use the word fiction. It says a spoken and written account of connected events. So when you say fiction, I don't know what you mean by that.
Look.
Anyway, I was just stating facts. I don't know what he's on about.
Fictional story.
I noticed when subversive hear facts, they call them narrative. You know.
Okay. Look, John. I agree with you that the problem with Judea is full of Jews, and we have to reenact prima nocta.
That's true.
And if we
I
can't
just don't
get
want them
out,
pushing down this narrative of they need a Holy Land.
You're pushing a narrative. I'm just stating facts.
No, you are.
John,
no, I did not. I only stated facts. Debunk one fact. I only stated facts.
But you don't want the Jews to give you a connected account of events that actually occurred.
You can't debunk anything I said, man.
No, it's just a sectarian. It's sectarian influence.
No, you can say that, but no, I just
out
stated
of context
Bible verses. Nope. No, I didn't quote the Bible at all. So now you're lying. I just stated facts.
I need to correct you on one thing. It is not Judea. It's Judea v'Shamron.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Just so we're clear.
Okay. Yeah, there was enough talking before that. So I just stated facts, and you're just whining, John, and you're trying to spin a narrative based on whining.
Since I didn't understand the big word Apex used, I'm just going to ignore that and go back to the Judea word.
It's Judea and Samaria.
He's got a phone in count. Okay, that was 5
in English.
In 1948,
that word was haram in
Jordanians,
some way.
In 1948, the Jordanians took over Judea and Samaria and renamed it the West Bank.
Palestine. just to punish the Jews. They wanted to detach the Jews from the land of Judea.
They also ethnically cleansed all the Jews from Jerusalem in 1948. So there was 0 Jews. The Jews used to be a majority in Jerusalem.
Before Muhammad popped onto the scene, like well before, right? Well before, like Christ.
Jews used to be a majority in Jerusalem before 1948, but the Jordanians kicked them out and renamed the place to wipe Jewish tradition from the place.
It was
Isn't part of like the
cultural appropriation?
The project was like there was a lot of anti-Semitism in Europe. So after World War II, because they found the concentration camps, or during Hitler's rule, that it was basically, you know, they would start migrating and start having their own diaspora.
No, they
this is kind of a new thing.
In 1881,
so that they can have these
Hitler was
secular
not.
universities run out and
I don't think Hitler was born when they started immigrating. So again, we don't know what you're talking about.
First Aliyahs were like late 19th century, wasn't it? Right?
It's 1881.
John, I want you to look at my screen. What do you see?
I see a whole bunch of colors. I don't know what you're.
I mean,
are you talking about the 10 tribes of Judah?
12.
Yeah, I did not refer to any of
there's
this.
12. Okay, now we're just changing everything. This is what I mean. It's a sectarian thing.
Changing?
I did not mention any of this, though. I did not mention any of this. I just stated facts from 1948, and you said it's biblical. The Bible doesn't talk about 1948, and you said that I was quoting the Bible. I didn't mention any of this.
I've rarely heard Mosad ever quote anything ever on the street.
I don't quote scripture. I just talk facts, known facts that we can test easily. I don't quote scripture because we cannot test it.
Also, I must say, as a computer scientist, I'm very impressed. You've got 100% track record of your algorithm so far. You've only tried to withdraw and you're 100%.
I just quote facts. All I do when I argue with these idiots is state facts.
That there wasn't a mass migration post World War II to the diaspora there.
That's not what he said.
There wasn't. There wasn't.
The story,
are you saying, or that's what I'm saying? That there was it was a Zionist project with Britain.
When do you stop your?
And you actually admitted that too.
No.
Yeah.
No.
The Zionist project is for the Jews to go
home. Even admitted it was allied with the British, the Rothschilds.
No, they didn't.
Forgetting
the British are not the Rothschilds.
I didn't mention
them. No, I'm just saying he allied.
You're hearing voices.
The Zionists allied with the
Listen,
British
you and the voices in your head. Maybe you should have the conversation.
Form the state of Israel, and you also won't address the Star of Rempel as your national flag. I wonder why.
John.
He's like, oh, it's not important. Well, it's your national flag. Why is that? Why is that there? What's the symbol of that?
John,
is that even an Abrahamic symbol? It's not even an Abrahamic symbol.
John,
it's a deception.
No, listen, he just wants to do a speech, so let him do his speech.
Yeah.
Well, Vance, come on, just give somebody some chance to talk.
You're just being an idiot. So I'll just let you.
Before I let you finish.
Well, yeah, because you won't answer any of my questions.
I need to be upfront about this. My great-grandfather was a member of the Irgun, and his cousin was a member of Lehi, who happened to be part of the King David Hotel bombing. So, as it is actually a matter of my own family history, the short answer is no. No. The whole they were in cahoots with the British. No,
I think you'll find. I think, John. I think you've got a little bit of British history confused. You would argue that the British
he's very confused.
Stop the Jews getting after the shore. The British could have done a lot more to let the Jews get to Israel, but the British actually try to limit the number of Jews who come to Israel.
Yes.
So there's some British.
Yeah, famous white papers.
Right, but wasn't the only surviving Rothschild bank mostly in Britain?
No,
because of the
it was the French.
Back to the banking. Okay, here we go.
It was the French that financed the most of the project in Israel. The English were against it, kinda. Not really against it, but didn't support it.
But didn't the Nazis take over?
Yeah, I think the Nazis actually they did fund that.
That was
too.
too late. The Rothschilds by that time.
All I want to say is
it was too late.
Come on,
look,
for example,
you're very confused, John. You got the chronology.
I think you guys are talking.
I just don't think you've heard the questions I've asked you before, and you're confused.
John, What I want to say is, brother, I invite you back to Islam because I feel that with the position you've taken towards Israel, it really is suits the Islamic narrative really well. Please come to me, take the Shahada again, and we shall welcome you
come join
into the
Hamas. Is that what
Islamic
you're saying?
Ummah.
What
Yes.
I've noticed is
Go
that
to your local
all
mosque
the
and let the mullah,
In
all the
Minecraft, come join Hamas in Minecraft.
all the anti-Israel guys are anti their own nations, and they also rely on lies to push their agenda.
I
So-
simply invite you to the true religion of God.
Just raise a question about white Muslims, though. And this is a fair one to ask John, right? Just coming from Timmy, who's a good man. He says, do we get to deport white Muslims? Is that legitimate then? Because if you're hard
Where would my white
Well,
Muslims
I'd
go?
say
yeah,
someone who's born in Canada and converts to Islam is very suspicious. Yes.
Huh? Well,
He obviously hates his own people. He has no respect for his people's traditions.
There's always the is he a Jew
yeah.
to test, which is also it's not the
I would suspect him. I would keep an eye on him.
on the list, eh?
Really?
I wouldn't go that. I wouldn't go that.
Look,
That's why your country is falling. You should go further.
yeah, you literally should. I
Yeah.
must say, every single time I go through this area with my father, I remind him the only reason we're here is for these little hills. The only reason we're here is for Jerusalem. Everything else is like,
Okay, guys, I think we've beaten the Israeli thing to death. But I just want to ask Ralph
You're
just
very
one
loud. You're very
question.
loud. You're very,
I'm
very
sorry.
loud.
Why am I very loud on your end? Everybody else seems to be okay.
no, you're also loud on mine.
Okay. I just want to ask quickly to Ralph. Ralph, how is the site coming along? Because what you showed me about the voting patterns of the anti-Semitic Labour Party would be basically the perfect thing that I would like to get from like your side type of thing. So is that coming along, and would we be able to extract that type of information?
A bit of a detail because of AI stuff coming up as well, but yeah, if you give me all the data you want. I can show you who they are, where they live. Whatever you want, man.
Well, no, it's just that it would be exceedingly helpful to the British voting public to be able to see what their MPs are doing and which way they're voting. I mean, that is really all.
The whole data. There's like 52 different dimensions of data just on the census data. You want to see down to about I've got it down to about 600 households, 20 postcodes that go who's what identity, what language, what religion, who they are, where they are.
Speaking of which, boss, quickly, I got a phone call from a friend. He got a suggestion, just in case you haven't thought about it before. Eventually, we're going to need to figure out a way to do accountability onto media organizations, similar to the previous proposal I gave you about.
We do a lot more tech streams, man, soon. Obviously, this personal circumstances and stuff. But but absolutely, Banksy, we're going to be talking a lot about not just that, but then rather than having to consume all these really large number of dimensions of data, how we're going to be plugging in AI as well to assist you in it. So if you want a set of AI agents, one that just specializes in Chiswick, one that specializes on the tax bill, one that specializes just on where's crime, then really what you want is an army of different AIs. And just to get the JQ thing going well, we really need the super AI that controls all the other AIs.
Is the ultimate Jew.
I'm calling it the JI. It's the Jewish.
Yeah.
Right, you're going to come and say all the AIs.
It's an AI wearing a yarmulke.
So the GI is the super AI.
What I've noticed, Ralph, is, for example, when Iran and the SNP are conspiring against the UK, nobody knows about it, nobody talks about it. But if some completely unknown rabbi says something, they're all talking about it.
Yeah,
that's why I think we should just.
No, where is the Iran conspiring with SNP? When did that happen? I have not even noticed.
You'd appreciate it.
There you go.
Yeah, GI is the term. GI is the uber emergent AI that controls, just to hurry it up and go, all the eyes are on with the Jews. But
Ralph, when you read the paper I'm finishing right now, I'm not sure we want super emergent AI. Anyway.
But by the way, I always wonder, why do you guys think the Jews are so interesting? Like, I'm like, also for Mossad, like, I know you think you are interesting yourself, but holy fuck, it's always about the Jews. Who the fuck cares?
Thank you.
Oh my God.
I don't care.
I mean, look, I think it's a nice country.
They kind of bring it. Jewish people kind of bring it upon themselves sometimes, though. I'm not going to lie.
No,
they
you're
keep
just
complaining, and then
you're obsessed with
just
them.
this whole
Vance.
thing, and then it's
You're
just
the one who's
well,
complaining. You're the one who's whining.
and then you don't answer
You're the one
questions
who's
honestly,
anti
and
his
it
own
just
nation.
it
You're the
just
one
it
who
just
wants to
shows you're
destroy his own
disingenuous,
country.
and that
You're the
spreads
one who wants to
anti-Semitism.
destroy his ancestors'
No,
legacy.
no,
Yes.
you're the one
you
that's
are
being
a destructive
disingenuous
force.
here.
No, I'm completely straight. I just talk facts.
Vance, let me ask you a
I
question.
only talk facts.
If you think
Debunk
Jews
one
bring
thing I
about
said.
No, you don't even know the symbol that you're
Jesus
flying
Christ.
right now.
You never come
I know
through
everything.
the mic
You don't even know the
level.
symbol that you're
Debunk
flying
one
right
thing I
now.
said. Debunk one thing I said. I
I
love how much my symbol annoys you.
And then you're the one that say, "Oh, you got to watch him because he's Muslim."
Yeah, you got to watch you. Yeah, of course.
Why?
I bet they do.
Why is that?
Because you are against your nation. You have no respect for your nation. Isn't it obvious? You're a rebel.
What would be Canadian values that I'd be against? Can you define
I'm not an
Canadian
expert
values?
in Canada. No, I don't want to
Can you give you a Canadian value?
Can you define
Vance, I
Canadian
can give you a
values, sir?
Canadian value.
Can you define it?
Value?
No. Well, then you're just being disingenuous. And that's probably why there's more anti-Semitism because of disingenuous actors such as yourself.
I don't think you can.
Yeah,
I think anyone asking. No, I'm not. I think everybody knows what.
Define what Canadian values are.
Of course not.
Well, yeah,
only an idiot would ask. Only an idiot would ask.
What you're saying.
Only an idiot would ask for
You're being
definition
disingenuous,
of
and this
values
is
of a
how
country.
anti-Semitism spreads.
You
because
just
of
talk,
people like
talk.
you.
Go on, talk, baby, talk. Yeah.
So John, let me ask
I
you.
will not define Canadian values, you idiot.
Yeah, he can't define it. That's why.
So
No, don't want to.
Mossad and Vance, please lower your voices. Jesus Christ.
I got you.
It's impossible to hear everyone. It's crazy.
Yeah, well, not when you talk over each other. I'm wondering if the Quran has thing about talking to each other. But yes, Conrad, you were trying to say something about it.
Yeah, so I can give you a Canadian value. So it is a Canadian value if you're rejected by a woman that you don't beat the shit out of her. But your nationalist leader, Travis Patron, did that very thing.
Okay, time out.
Okay.
Finish your thing, and then this is Mossad now.
He did serve time. Yeah. He did pay his debt
Are
to
you
society.
still
Yes.
fan? Are you still fan? Are you still part of the Canadian Nationalist Party or whatever it is?
You can look at me and Claire did a video on Travis. You can look through that. I'm not going to go through. It's a long story. You can look through that.
It's a long story. Yes, it's a long story.
Okay, time out. Can we just all agree that this is Mossad about John right now?
There's no audio on that.
You don't read.
Everyone loves a conflict.
Have you read the book?
We can't hear it, man.
Name 10 books. He says name 10 books.
Yeah, I know.
Name 10 books. It's a very
and the girl says Game of Thrones.
I have a question to John.
Harry Potter.
Do the anti-Israel thing come at the same time as your conversion to Islam? Or were you always anti?
My relationship.
He's like the LGBT type,
Israel,
he's like the trans.
You know what? I'm not against Orthodox Jews like practicing their religion.
Right. Okay. Well, I let them know.
Formation of
I let them know
Israel
that you're not against
and the Israeli flag with the Star of Renfrew. I'm not against Orthodox Jews. I'm more against the nation.
Star of David.
But they also have the
It's
star.
not. It's a Star of Renfrew. Look it up.
But the Orthodox also
That is
have the
not an
star.
Abrahamic symbol. No, that is not an Abrahamic symbol. Don't tell me that's an Abrahamic symbol.
You said
That's
it about 100
blasphemy.
times now. You said it 100 times. You think we got it, or do you want to say it again? Go on, say it about 30 more times, and then we can get out.
Well, maybe if I say it, you'll get it eventually.
Go on, say it. Go on.
It's blasphemy.
Go on, say it. Say
Your
it 30
Star of
times. I'm
David
counting.
or Star of Renfrew.
One.
Is blasphemy. There we go.
One. Okay, 29 more, please.
It's blasphemy.
Is it blasphemy?
For example, in Israel, there is a stone from an old arch that was part of an old synagogue from the 3rd to 4th century in the Shirbat Shura synagogue in Galilee. Are you sure that it's
There was
like
lots of groups in and out of Israel. It doesn't necessarily mean that the Jewish people have the ultimate
a
claim
synagogue.
there.
But let me ask you a question, John. Simply.
The synagogue.
No.
A synagogue. Well, obviously, there's been synagogues, there's been mosques, there's been churches.
Under what authority does a religious group choose a symbol?
Well, we have to ask John, apparently.
That's the national flag of Israel, is it not?
Yes.
Who gets to choose
It was designed to annoy you.
But who chooses the religious authority of a symbol? Like, who chooses the religious authority of Christian symbols like the cross or Muslim symbols? I assume Muslims do, right? And Christians do, right?
They worship the moon, the Muslims, don't
Do
they?
the Jews get to choose their own symbols?
I mean, the Muslims worship the moon, judging by their flags.
Yeah.
And the Christians worship the letter
prayer
X.
times off of the moon. They don't worship the moon. There's no other worship other than Allah. You
Well, they have the moon.
because you
they
have
have done on it.
you have a
So why
blasphemous
do they have the moon?
symbol.
They have moon. They have moon, though.
So what is the crescent moon symbolizing then?
Yeah, they have a moon. Sorry.
It's basically
It's
a
La.
Arabic
It's
calendar off of
it's
the
a pagan.
lunar.
No,
they have
it's
a
a
lunar
pagan.
calendar.
It's a pagan. It's a
lunar
pagan
calendar.
goddess La. It's a pagan goddess La.
Okay.
It's the goddess of the moon.
Does that mean you worship the moon?
John,
Yeah.
When Orthodox Jews kiss the stone, does that mean they worship the stone? No. I think actually that they're making
Well, I'm
fun
going
of
by your logic.
Muslims and the Kaaba.
I'm going by your logic. No, I'm applying your logic.
No, I mean you can make the
Yeah.
same argument about the Kaaba. You can make the same argument with Kaaba.
About
that doesn't mean you worship as a
what's
co-equal to
Kaaba?
God.
I thought it was the
Kaaba.
Kaaba.
You mean the Kaaba?
Kaaba.
Yeah, I was
Sorry,
going to say the Kaaba.
Yeah. But I mean,
Sorry.
they don't kiss the
LOL.
Kaaba. They do
Zohar.
kiss a stone out just on the outside of the Kaaba, which is supposed to be some holy meteorite, which is
Yes.
shaped like a.
Well,
like a woman's
meteorites are
orifice.
holy, man.
Okay, John.
But yeah, they do kiss that.
I mean,
It was
he's
bought on a
trying to make
donkey.
the inference that Muslims worship physical things. They don't.
No, you are. I'm just using your logic.
But
Wait,
what
John,
I genuinely
What?
want to know-
I'm not getting the
Just
connection
applying your
here.
logic.
No,
you don't.
What I
Because
logic
you
would
just
that
want to
be
do
that-
that. I think everyone else
Well,
got the
yeah,
connection.
yeah, you're using a
So let's keep you out of the
blasphemous
party.
symbol, yes. That is not an
Everybody
Abrahamic
got the
symbol,
joke.
sir.
Everybody,
That is a
everybody got the
blasphemy.
joke.
No,
and
no one
you
got the
didn't. That's his
joke.
best joke.
You're not
Yeah, everybody got
funny,
the
you're
joke
just
except
lame.
you.
You're lame and you're
John,
insidious
John, what I-
and you're
Oh,
disingenuous.
now we're name calling.
Yeah.
That's right. Yes, very.
Oh,
Do you,
no.
John, do you think
You're
do you
arguing
think-
in bad
do you think
faith.
the seven-
Absolutely,
do you
yes.
think do you think the seven candle stand should be the flag of Israel?
the
what?
The
menorah.
menorah?
Menorah.
Ahem.
He doesn't know
Menorah.
anything. God, you're asking him stuff he wouldn't know.
No.
about.
But
He's
John,
just
John,
a
I
clown.
genuinely want to know this. What is the star? What's the origin of the star then? If it's not,
It's already on your screen for you, Maxi. I mean, my man Apex is
The
all over
origin
this.
was a star. It was in the 18th century or 19th century that they
Either
started
18
using
or
it,
19,
and
come
it
on.
was a. I mean, it's not.
fact
It's
check,
not. It doesn't
false.
have Abrahamic
Both stars
roots.
are older.
It's not. No, it's
Fact
not.
check,
It's not
Okay.
that
Both
old.
stars are older.
It is
The
older.
star,
No,
the star
the
of
star-
Rempel,
the
the Star of
star-
David is
So
not
this
older.
is a lie.
It's
So
a,
what
it's
we're
a very
seeing on
young
this screen
symbol.
is a lie. Is that what I'm hearing?
It's older. Yeah, we have it in
No, this is
ancient
the
ruins.
Star of
So it's
Solomon,
older.
which is based on the Star of David. Which is based on the Star of
Oh,
David.
Okay, so
Or
now
it's
we're
actually,
just
I
kind
don't
of
know which one's
making
based on
look,
which.
John, I'm
we're
gonna
making
be honest with you.
sectarian
I'm not a
interpretations now.
historian. I'm
No,
not a
just stating
John,
facts.
John, I'm not a
Josephus
historian, but I will
was
say
in the
this.
first century.
Oh, now, this star, that's a reach, man. That's a
Hold on.
reach. That's seriously.
John,
a
John,
reach.
This is not the Star of David. Not the Star of David. Okay. It's the Star
No,
of Solomon.
it's not. It's not. No, it's not. It's a lie. Listen, it's a narrative. It's a lie. You're narrativing lies. Yeah.
Look. One thing.
John,
I'm not a
John, this is
historian.
not going well, John.
Seal of Solomon.
John,
Yeah, his
let me
son.
just say
That's
this.
his son.
Guys,
That's his
hold
son.
on. Let me just say this. Look. I'm not a historian, but I did watch The Mummy, and in that movie,
okay.
the guy holds up a Star of David in front of the mummy, and the
There you
Egyptian mummy
go.
recognizes it as a symbol of the Jews. So I am convinced by that evidence alone.
And I think so. I think you're right there.
Which is why I put a couple of chase, John.
I don't. It's not this. It's not a symbol of anything. It's just a blasphemous symbol.
But when you
Right,
like this before
okay.
you became a Muslim, I'm much more interested in your personal story, your personal journey. I think the Star of David, the archaeological evidence is too compelling for me to worry about that.
Yes.
Were you like this before Islam? Before you became a Canadian Muslim? Or were you young? Were you always thinking, I think these Jews have stolen the Star of David. There must be a different symbol. Or was this something that was accelerated after you took your Shahada?
By the way, it's not called the
I-
Star of David. It's called the Seal of David, or the.
It's actually called the Star of
Magen
Rempel.
David.
Rempel.
No, it's not.
Look up the Star of
It's called the
Rempel.
Magen
No, it's
David.
not.
REMPEEL.
No, I'm familiar with this stuff. With the star, you don't have to spell it for me. It's just not.
Remember,
So
It's almost like the seal of Solomon.
Like this.
it's called a seal, or what do you call it? A shield.
No, ramp.
That's what the word means.
REMPEL.
Crest.
Should be it.
Yeah.
Rampal?
Yeah, I'm
Are
familiar
you
with
talking
this.
about our?
Hey, the
hate
highly
this.
educated Jews don't know about their symbol. They're going to find it here.
No, I know that this symbol was used. It was also used by other groups. Absolutely, most symbols are not original. You know, there's
Look,
nothing. I mean, how
am
many
simply
shapes can you
using
make?
Wikipedia right now because it's good enough. Is the short answer. It's good enough.
Yeah. No, I didn't say it was
Wikipedia.
exclusive.
Wow.
This symbol is not exclusive to Israel and the
This is good
Jews.
enough.
Have you done
this
a
is good
research paper before on citing what is a credible source and what is not? Probably
No,
not.
no,
If
it's
you're
not.
going off of
Something as well
Wikipedia.
established as this. No, for something as
No, I don't go for Wikipedia. But
As opposed to
well, you told us to search the internet. He told us to search, and when we search, he tells us we don't know how to do research.
Come on, man.
Well, it wasn't me.
I personally find movies to be a very credible source of information.
John, this is not going well, is it?
Well, because you're using faulty sources.
It's faulty.
Guys. Where does it come from?
If I could just iron
It was in a market in England in, I believe, the 18th century, and then it was adopted by.
We got it cheap. We got it cheap. It was even the market. We got a cheap deal on it, and we thought that'd be a good symbol.
John, we have the Seal of Solomon.
It's half price, man. Half price symbol.
Josephus.
Jode.
Do I need to open up Josephus?
Poor Jode, he talked to this nutcase. I watched some of it.
Rimfan. I'm not. I know what I'm talking about.
John, okay, that's good.
Yes,
John,
you do, John. I can tell.
You can't even say it right.
Hang on one second. Are you making a claim, John? You're making the claim that the Jewish symbol shows up in the 18th century?
Yes.
It's a new symbol. I remember reading it somewhere. Like it was like.
Oh, you remember reading somewhere? He remembers reading
from
somewhere.
Abraham or anything. It wasn't the Star of David. It was in a market.
I mean,
and it was.
Why do you think that Wikipedia is not a good way? I mean, like I study history.
It's just common sense that Wikipedia is not the best source for anything.
It's not the best, but it's
it's not the most credible. It's not the most credible source. That's my criticism.
No, John Vance is the most credible source.
I've started muting everyone.
So
John Vance is the source.
Wikipedia has source material of academics, and you can.
Muting everyone.
Would you prefer the historian Josephus?
I start muting everyone. Look, guys, if we don't take turns, the people in the chat are screaming that no one can understand anything. So,
can I just get in?
I think it's that.
Yeah,
I think instead of focusing on symbols, well, about focus on the government structure, because as far as I'm concerned, Judea was never democracy; it was a monarchy, wasn't it?
The kingdom.
I mean, yeah, kingdom of Solomon, I believe, or whoever, but David.
You have a problem with kingdoms?
But one thing I wanted to just quickly ask. Is there records or actual artifacts that are older than the 18th century that bear the symbol?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, doesn't that kind of settle the fact that this 18th century or this being found in a market?
Not if you hate Israel and Jews. It never settles it.
Okay, Banksy, the short answer is I'm literally reopening Josephus for the first time in like 10 years because John is sitting here saying going to Wikipedia instead is not sufficient. So fine, I'm reopening Josephus for you to get the Seal of Solomon.
But what I mean is there are physical artifacts on there, actual physical.
Yes.
This is what happens every time when you argue with these people. They have no clue. Every time.
How old is this?
So tiring.
Josephus was a Roman Jewish historian.
Yeah, it's about 2,000 years, 1900
and he was mentioning
years.
an ancient Jewish seal that was well known at the time as just an ancient Jewish seal that the Jews have had since, I don't know, they claim it comes all the way back from Solomon.
Yeah, and I'm just looking at the synagogues that show them in the
we don't have proof.
Wait, is this historian? Is this pre World War II or after World War II?
It's free the
Josephus is
like
Because a lot of
Josephus
history
is
has been
1900 years
sanitized after
ago.
World War II. Is it not? I mean, his story. You know what
He's
I mean?
1900.
You know what I mean?
Josephus is 1900 years ago. 1900
Josephus
years ago.
is
So it's a bit before the
contemporary
World
of
War II.
Jesus.
Yeah.
It's like as far as I understand, Josephus is a contemporary of Jesus. He actually was alive during that period.
That's
around
right,
the time, but definitely not the 18th century.
At least he was alive.
When was this book
the Second
published?
World War.
When was this book published, though? When was this
It was
published?
published during the time of Augustus, if memory serves.
2,000
actual
years ago,
copy,
man.
or is it just like it was rehashed out? Like it was.
Oh, it's
Yes.
forgery.
Like the
it's forgery.
actual
Listen,
word for word copy,
let
or is
me
it
say,
just kind of?
okay, John.
No,
John,
I'll
let me
have to
tell
see
you
it. I'll
the
have to
truth.
check it because obviously I'm very skeptical.
Let me
Anything
save you
post
time.
World War
Let me save
II
you
has
time. Let me
been
save
fairly
you time, John.
sanitized since the Nuremberg
That's right.
trials.
Yes.
Let me save you time.
John,
yeah.
let me save you time. It's a Jewish conspiracy.
It's not difficult. Let's wait for someone to finish. So here you are, Josephus, 1st century.
Yes, but it's written after World War II.
No, yeah. If it's written after World War, if it's published after World War II, then it's illegitimate.
He wrote it just after.
It is.
Just after he wrote
It is not credible.
1st century.
This is what the anti-Israel crowd is like. It's very typical.
Maybe
It's so
for
funny. This is
fundamental
why we win all the wars. They're so stupid. It's like.
But let me ask you more fundamental. Do you understand the calendar, John? Do you understand that? When I say 1st century, do you know what I mean by that? I don't mean after World War II. I don't mean like lost century.
Like okay,
just
give me the books and I'll. When was the published date of the books? It was the actual copy of the book, so not just a new book.
Look, John.
Not just
guys, listen.
like the actual transcript. Like, can you actually? Is it actually? Don't be like a Christian and be like, oh yeah, it was 100 years after his death. Like, no, like you can actually trace it back to what he actually said, or has it been rehashed out?
Can I ask a question about that? John,
can I ask you a question about that, by the way?
John, he didn't say it, he wrote it. He wrote it and he published it in his own lifetime.
Yeah,
and then the English
is there an actual copy of this book right now that I can get?
Josephus
yes,
so I can be educated.
What are you asking, John? What are you asking?
Like the letters that he written.
Just for clarification, John, are you asking for a book that is 2,000 years old?
I just sent him in the chat.
Anything
like
pre World War II that wasn't published in World War II.
No. Are you actually asking for the pages to be like 2,000 years old, or what? Like pages to be published?
You know what? I'll compromise on that, and I'll say anything that's pre World War II, I'll accept it.
But John, can I just get into this? So wait.
Send me the book. Here's the link of the book.
This is an archive.
Yeah, but I wonder if John
finished in 1800.
I just want to see if John
was it in 1800s.
No, the publication of this translation. No, but the translation was 1800. No, but
1800?
the translation was 1800. Was the translation?
Okay. Maybe you know what? Maybe I'll entertain it then.
The original was in Greek, which was published.
Josephus is one of the few people that apparently wrote about Jesus. That's why I know about Josephus, is because a lot of Christians use him as a source of a non-Christian source talking about Jesus. Yeah. Although some historians say that those passages about Jesus may have potentially been fraudulent, written by Christians centuries later, claiming it was Josephus, but nevertheless, Josephus is a historian that was a contemporary of Jesus, dude, literally 2,000 years ago.
Yeah,
he didn't proofread my Kampf just before he wrote his documents.
The Roman emperor got him documenting the Jews. Not forget Jesus, just the Jews.
Yeah, Josephus defected to the Romans during the Jewish Roman War, and he basically became an adopted member of the Roman emperor family. So his works was definitely going to be copied and
I'm not
definitely older than World War II.
I know who Josephus is. I was just asking about the publication of the book.
But why does it matter? Why does it matter? So why does it matter? Because I don't know. I want to ask you a question. Why does it matter? And I actually want to elaborate why it should matter. So
It
So
should
you
matter
think?
because
Oh no! Whoa,
post
whoa, whoa,
World
whoa!
War II,
So
a
you
lot
think?
of the
Okay, no,
history
no, no, no,
books
no,
were
no.
rewritten.
Yeah, but you're not even.
A
I
lot of
haven't
a lot of
finished my
books have been
question yet.
rewritten. A lot
I
of
haven't
history has
finished
been
my question
manipulated.
yet. John, you're
This
responding to a question I
version,
haven't asked. You
this
haven't
version
even
was
let me finish
published
my
in
question.
1800.
So you think that after the Second World War, what people do is inject things into primary source material. Are you that conspiratorial?
Yes.
All right. Well,
I
I mean, that
actually
solves it.
believe that. I believe that
Okay.
wholeheartedly for
Well, yeah.
anything,
If you believe that, yeah.
especially with the
Okay. Yeah.
Ice Age and you know, and with
Okay.
NASA and then
What?
NASA, you know, that conspiracy. Did we go to space? I don't know.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. We got a cookie here. Yeah.
John, do you know that there's a reflector on the moon that we can shoot at from a laser from any decent physics department?
The light doesn't go that far. Light doesn't travel that far. It spreads out.
What?
What? I said a laser.
What?
I said a laser.
Light doesn't travel as far as the moon.
No.
Do you know there's a sun?
Like you can't really measure the accuracy of with a light because it fades out over time, right?
No,
and
you know what a laser
and also how we measure, like, so
John,
if the Earth is spinning, right?
John, do you know what a laser
If the Earth is spinning,
John,
oh
I'll tell you
shit,
what
I gotta go. Shit,
Okay,
I love to talk to you guys, but I gotta go do something. But good conversation with you guys. But yeah,
Hey,
I'm just
He's gonna
I'm
measure
just
the
kind of
laser.
okay, I actually have to do something. Sorry, I had a good time here, but
It's all
yeah,
good.
I would like to share. I would like to share more of my ideas with you a little bit later, but
Hey,
yeah,
you're welcome on
and share some sources I have. So okay,
Especially
all right.
the ideas about light
they
not
older
being able
than
to
Josephus?
travel to the moon and back.
Are they older than
No, it spreads.
Josephus?
I'm going to share with him that light amplification by the simulated emission of radiation, a laser, is capable of traveling in a straight line because of the laws of physics. And I love that I checked. That stuff doesn't stop like
Ralph,
Right.
I'm gonna stop.
light
I'm gonna let you finish. But my question is, are his sources older than Josephus?
I'm sorry, I'm not interested. I'm not interested in any sources apart from ones after 1871.
Look,
I'm not
we all know that
after
Josephus wrote My Kampf and then he wrote his accounts.
We all know
If
Josephus
you make
is the
PG about
original
anything to
source.
do with light and the moon and suddenly NASA and stuff, I'm like, so he's a Sunni fundamentalist. Obviously, no one went to the moon except when it was split asunder. Right?
I'd like to thank John for helping prove that my rule never has an exception.
Yeah, you got 100 for 100, bro. I set him up with a simple question: would you choose Canada or the Caliph? He's like, yeah, Caliph. I'm like, all right. Okay.
Oh my god.
All enemies of Israel hate the wrong people.
Look, I'm not really up on the symbolism of Jewish people, but I figured that the star thing was a little bit older than the 18th century.
So the
I don't know. That was just straight off the top of my head.
But even if it was a new symbol, what aren't people allowed to adopt a symbol? I mean, the Palestinian flag is only 40, 50 years old. So
only the Jewish man, you can't do it.
Yeah, aren't people allowed to adopt flags?
Relevant. Can we all agree that Ralph has demonstrated enough philo-Semitic rhetoric for the German Secret Service to leave me alone? Why would the German Secrets leave me alone? I consider them my friends.
So, to answer your question, Banksy, by the way, as someone who seriously looked into it in the past, to answer your question, the symbol itself is not unique to the Jews. In Jewish folklore, it goes back basically forever, though, in two forms. One is the Star of David, the Magen David in Hebrew, which actually translates more literally to the Shield of David. The other
it's not
is
a
the Seal of
star.
Solomon. The second one is the Seal of Solomon, which is a magical symbol that Solomon had. And it was basically the star plus a few things in its center, right? And the short answer is the first actual evidence we have outside of like archaeological random coins we find, which, I mean, they could have just had the hexagram for a different reason, so fair enough. But the actual thing looks like that's definitely just the Star of David, or Josephus mentioning the Seal of Solomon, and then a few synagogues where we found that's the Star of David. And these date back to the 1st century CE and I think the 3rd century CE as well.
I agree.
So we have older coins in that. But it's questionable necessarily because it could also be something else if you're being very generous.
I don't believe you, man.
Right.
I got a book on Amazon I could read up on it. It's a book. Was the book written on Amazon? On Kindle? I don't believe you otherwise, bro.
But
Yeah,
Listen, he has better sources.
there's no justification for democracy in Israel because there was no
yeah, well,
democracy.
yes, actually.
There is. I tell you what. I tell you what the justification is. The people can choose whichever way they can want to govern themselves.
Yeah.
I wouldn't tell the English which type of government they should have. I could have my own opinions, but I don't think it's my place to tell them. And
So
Yeah,
if the Jews choose democracy and it's bad, it's bad. You know.
England has always been a monarchy. The Jewish people went from being a monarchy and then a good 1,000 years.
So were the French. The French was a monarchy.
Yeah, but
and they were based.
The Germans were a monarchy.
And they were based. And then look what happened when they lost.
Israeli
Look at what
society
happened
as
when
it
they lost
is
that.
could not unite under a single person, in my opinion.
Why not?
So
why not?
Because there are too many sections of society that don't really, they would not unify under one person. So it would have to. It could come at a different time, you know, when something else, the different atmosphere.
Do you think it's possible that the Chinese could once again unite under one emperor?
I don't know the Chinese well enough. I'm
Maybe
actually quite ignorant.
I just think monarchy is the most human form of government. I'm gonna be real with you. I think that humans today, we kid ourselves when we say we couldn't unite under a king. The short answer is we could. We just need someone who looks impressive enough.
I don't think our generation can produce someone like that.
I'm not dismissing some form of democracy or some form of voting.
Yes.
I'm just saying.
No, if there should be, I think the British model has a lot going for it, and some combination of monarchy and voting is a good idea.
Yeah, and this is the thing, that we have the common law and our constitution makes
We
it
do
out.
too.
Yeah, but it does work better when you have a monarch, because the monarch is meant to be the first among equals, and
yes, but I'll tell you what the problem is. The legitimacy used to come from the religion, and people are not religious enough to give the monarch the legitimacy they need.
But
in Britain, we're not very religious at all, but we still continue the pomp and ceremony.
Time
Yeah,
out.
but that's why the monarch has no. Yeah, that's the problem, because there is no religious underlining or religious conviction underlining the monarchy. The monarchy in Britain is a paperweight. It's pointless. It's useless.
No, it's not.
Because it doesn't have.
They do have the power to veto any
Yeah,
legislation.
but
they just don't have the balls.
Pause.
Come on, it doesn't happen.
Anyone
Let's
ever
talk
looked at
about
demographics?
reality.
Anyone ever looked at the demographics of this?
Of what?
Compare the same religion, more secular versus more religious members, whether it's Jew or Anglican. What is their birth rates?
Yeah.
So, for example, in Israel, the ultra-religious Mossad have what birth rate compared to the secular Jewry?
It's like 7.
Yeah, 6, 7 kids.
Yeah, okay, and the secular Jews still have a respectable birth rate, but it's not the same. It's not
it's
the same.
2.5, something like that.
Yeah. Okay, it's the short answer is that given how little children the English secular have, there's always a chance, so long as you don't get conquered by foreigners, for this thing to correct itself.
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, we can't tell the future. I hate conversations about the future.
No, religion is 0.6 heritable. Minimum.
Yeah, okay, yeah, whatever. I mean, so why is the world become irreligious if it's inheritable and all that? I mean, there are things that,
Mossad, you want an honest answer to that? Because industrialization.
It's very complicated. Yeah, I mean,
because industrialization.
When we're comfortable, things change.
Yeah, but also
I'm not so sure about that, because look at imperialist Japan before the Second World War, when they were taken over by America. They had both the benefits of industrialization and a really high birth rate. So I'm not seeing the connection.
They have a very low birth rate now.
So the full argument would be basically we still have a religion, so our religion has changed, and your religion is actually a genetically predisposed religion, right? So the reality is is that the secular Jews have their own religion that's secular Jewry, and different from the religious Jews' religion. It just also has a different birth rate.
How about you swap religion for patriarchy?
A belief in patriarchy comes with the territory of religions, usually.
But does it have to just be religion? Can't we just have patriarchy without religion?
Well, I don't know. Here's a question for you, Jay Kingston. The authority of the Father, is it more or less absolute if God said so?
This is the thing, James. I think
you don't necessarily need a God to have patriarchy.
No, but I'm asking
no.
which one is better at enforcing? Which one outcompetes two
Which
groups exactly
one?
the same? Exactly the same, but one thinks that the word of God is that everything they're doing is correct. They do both of the same.
Wait,
But one
why is it any better? Why is it any better with a Hindu patriarch? You know, they believe in multiple gods, but they still give the same
No, they
results.
still have. No, it's not that. It's the fact that it is the religious foundation. That is the source here. It doesn't matter if it's Buddha or Vishnu or Allah or Yahweh.
Bingo.
It's the religious foundation
Bingo.
that gives their system structure. And
All right,
unfortunately, when you
so
pull that
so-
rug from under
so-
the
so how we-
society
how-
from under
so-
society,
so how
it's
would you
hard
dis-
to
Yeah,
build
but
this.
how would you describe religion then? Like,
But what
we
I
could
was
say- we
saying
could
is
say
it's a
the le- we could say the
fundamental
left-wing
belief in
ideology is
something.
religion.
Well, you got to have a fundamental foundational belief in something that is beyond the human physical realm. I think that is where it really comes. It's a human psyche. Don't get me wrong. I don't think it's to do with, like, I don't actually believe that there has to be a metaphysical creature out there. I'm saying that the human beings who build their foundation have to believe that there is something that is of authority that is beyond them. And if it's beyond them, then they cannot just simply challenge it in their in this physical
But
sort
does
of
it
form.
strictly have to be metaphysical? Like, you could say,
Well, no,
God
but what I'm saying is that it seems that the
logically
religious
does.
metaphysical foundation is the strongest one at the moment, and you can't build that patriarchal society, with a strong foundation without it. And I'm not saying
I
it's
may.
correct. I'm just saying it seems to be that human beings seem to operate better with that foundation.
No, I'm not.
If I may.
I'm not denying they're not actual benefits with religion or believing in a metaphysical reality. I'm just saying that, we kind of overcomplicate it by saying, oh, we need to believe in metaphysical things in order to have a patriarchy or birth replacement level, rather than just saying, no, we just need patriarchy.
Before this gets all weirdly derailed, if I may help with Banksy, with what Banksy was stating here, I would actually agree. The problem is just communicating that concept. Really, what it is for somebody to have the capacity for faith, they have to accept that this existence itself was built and or made by something that fundamentally transcends our own capacity to even understand that which makes it real, which is why it seems to border on the metaphysical. That's exactly why it seems like it's metaphysical, and in many ways, it becomes metaphysical in a way because it is fundamentally incapable of being fully described. And that is the foundational principle behind understanding something like God in the first place. Ultimately, understanding you are infinitesimally small in something that is infinitesimally large, and your mind has no capacity to fully understand it. And anybody that comes at it from the position of hubris, saying, "Oh, I do understand all things and I know more than everybody," those are the people that are doomed to sin and doomed to failure. That's part of this is part of it in the Bible. That is part of, in many ways, that is also part of Adam's sin, right? And he understands and accepts that, hey, look, I can, transcend. I love that word. Transcend is one of my favorites. But it's, Adam sort of lets the devil he sort of lets the actions of the devil convince him that he could understand all things, which is fundamentally impossible given how infinitesimally complex all things actually are. We can barely even understand our own partners. We can barely understand the people we spend our lives around.
I think that you can have some kind of secular type understanding of this, which is what Jordan Peterson was doing before he was broken by Russian doctors.
Ooh, okay. So Matan, I'm going to make a hard argument about that. I'm going to make a hard argument about that. The answer is no, you can't. Peterson's was a religious one. You can have a Bronze Age pervert style secular understanding, but
Yeah.
that derives from Nietzsche. And Nietzsche, the issue with Nietzsche is that that's not something that 90% of people can handle. 90% of humans, it breaks them. It breaks them hard. In fact, maybe 99%.
That's
I don't
exactly
like.
it. My
I'm sorry,
position
what do
from
you mean
this.
by it? It
What
breaks.
I'm
And what do you mean
saying
by it?
is what I'm saying is that through the method that Peterson was giving people, he was arguing the logic of tradition, and I think this is a very good path for people to start thinking towards. It's very hard to take someone and change them from secular to suddenly switch them to religious.
I know.
And if you
I
rely on
agree with
birth
you.
rates, you're going to be waiting a long time. So I think the stuff that Peterson was
But
doing,
the thing is,
and it made me appreciate personally, and a lot of people that I know, it made us appreciate tradition a lot more. Even though we're not religious, we understand that something that has been carried for a long time must have a value. And
I
even
even
if we,
my journey met lots of those people came out of the Jordan Peterson pipeline, and they don't believe in God or something, but they looked around and they could respect and revere the fact that their culture and tradition, this thing they were trying to defend as conservatives, actually littered with spiritual.
Yes.
Where's
this
is my book of
what
Yiddish proverbs?
Did that help at all with that part though? Just before I'm like, just before
so I
out.
didn't. I wanted to ask. I didn't understand what Ralph said.
Sorry. So what I did is, I met lots of people too, young boys, obviously my little journey, who went through the Jordan Peterson pipeline, and they still didn't believe in God. But what he had done is he had transformed their understanding that the things they were looking at could be looked at in reverence as being a product of a culture that believed in God. These things were made for the. So if you look at the Sagrada Familia Cathedral, look at the great bits of this European white culture they're defending, and you look at them, they were painted in the glory of God. They were built in the glory of God. They didn't, the devotion that went to the work, the notion of devotion itself, is something that you could admire, close to without believing metaphysically in the existence of God. And Peterson
exactly.
Yes. So it gives you an appreciation.
This is what I was trying to say. Sorry, Mr. Hold 1 second. I was trying to say this to James, is that you can look at it in a pragmatic way of, yes, we need to have more babies because we need to keep our race and our society going and our culture and preserve, in a pragmatic way. You can explain this to someone on a pragmatic level that, this is a necessity, but they will never truly absorb it or understand it in their core, if you will, and actually pass that down to their children if it's not underpinned by some religious or what we describe as a spiritual or religious understanding of reality or the world that we live in. Unfortunately, I'm not saying I believe it. I'm saying that most people need that underpinning, and if you don't underpin it, if you just explain it in a pragmatic way, it won't sink in. It won't. People just won't get it.
You get communists.
But the thing is, talking about this external value, meaning it's actually by definition an externality to it. By definition, it's in the realm of the unknown, and in a strange, perverted sense almost, because it's unknown, it actually has the effect of anchoring you, right? Think of expressions like the spirits of my forefathers, or the things that were done. These ideas they become kind of nebulously, you can't touch them, but they're ethereal.
Aveno.
Fingers in the baby, steps in the bathwater, or something that is the perpetuity of tradition. It's very different.
I'm just saying the term God is a conjecture. Like it could be either a metaphysical thing or it could be the literal state, like a lot of communists like to believe.
Logically speaking, it couldn't be both. So I understand why. I understand why people try to make it things like the state, but that would the problem is the physical creation of God doesn't actually make sense as the primary form, not in terms of God may manifest, but in terms of the idea of God as a physical creature. for the quite simple reason that everything in the universe is fundamentally metaphysical, not physical. I.e., the metaphysical laws govern the physical ones, and not the other way around.
And that's well said, Apex, because for people who do believe in God, like, I don't think of the physical as finding an analogy for the metaphysical. For me, that's entirely upside down. I see everything as revelation, as derivative of God. There can't be no. So the universe is derivative of God. It's not something I can use the universe itself to construct a model of God.
On the Peterson thing, though, I think there's an important thing, at least for young men, that most people are overlooking, which is at the end of the Peterson hole, there are basically 3 outcomes. Outcome 1 is you totally reject it, and you just go back to being whatever you were. Outcome 2 is you become religious of some sort. You take the plunge. And outcome 3 is you find yourself totally robbed of the ability to be religious. I have some close personal friends who have been in that unfortunate position and are in that, or at least think themselves in that unfortunate position. And
outcome 4 is appreciation of tradition and more respect for religion. And,
no, that comes as part of outcome 3. That's part of outcome 3. I'm talking about young men. The realization that they've been robbed of the ability to believe in faith because it's been so deconstructed, even if they want to. So I see this in
that's a victim mentality. What do you mean robbed? We're not robbed. We just know so much today.
Let me give you a halfway point between that, right? From someone who's younger than you but older than me. So they don't have the full young man's view of they feel robbed, but they still feel something's missing, which is Sargon's description of his changing views on religion and how he has mentioned on several streams at this point how his son is basically a Christian, and every single time that someone tries to like stomp on it, he's like, no, son, you can be a Christian all you want. In other words, he's perfectly fine with his son's Christianity because a part of him understands that, well, he could never be Christian himself. That's been, he will never be able to believe no matter what he wants to do. He's even if he could rationally convince him at this point, it wouldn't matter. Like it's so deeply held. It's rationally held. I think that's part of it.
I got to find the extreme debate. I was in a debate on a couple of these big atheist and Christian channels, and it was with this really interesting kind of not transsexual, but really well-read on physics kind of guy. And this went on. I'll find the stream somewhere. It's like an hour and a half or something. But, and he just couldn't believe, he couldn't fathom that I would see everything that was the creation as being something almost irrelevant, right? Almost as given by God. Whereas for him, he was trying to construct everything by an equation. Everything had to have an explanation. And there's in the early works in complexity theory, there's a great paper from Yale where when asked to describe even the notion of explanation, this guy comes up with a paragraph that said, an explanation is to be explanar from Latin, to explanar, to lay on a plane, to see all the parts, and therefore as a consequence, lose the whole. Right? The idea that even trying to explain it down. And it's a really good conversation because people who don't believe in God or can't accept the metaphysical are going to always go anti-reductionist, right? They're always going to try to go up and try to make it God, right?
Ralph, did you read the text I sent you today? Are you telling me that the thing I'm writing right now is a hopeless cause? Is that what this means?
I had a quick glance, but you understand the situation is I've had very little. This was just an escape, and at some point I'm going to kill the ship. I'm very excited by what I saw. So,
yeah. It's like if that's true, then the formal definitions wouldn't be useful at all.
Well, no, but yeah, we can talk about that. But I don't want to bore this take the stream off the tangent. But no, absolutely. I think for me, like you as well, it's got to be both coherent, consistent, and complete. It's insufficient. If it's insufficient, even slightly, I'm not willing to entertain.
But then Gödel applies, and then you realize that system is only doable by God. It's not doable in the physical realms of reality.
I think John was trolling us. He gave it the transsexual guy. It was crazy because he didn't understand. I said, look, as someone who's a science kid, I wasn't sure when I was young. I was quite precocious. I wasn't sure when I do maths, physics, computing, whatever. I was 10, 12, 13, excited. And I look and say, well, if you look at the history of physics, say, we know the world, objective truth. Well, you have the elements, then they had the atomists, then you have the periodic table, you have the alchemists up before them, then we got Newtonian mechanics. But at every point, all the way to quantum chromodynamics, the most precise physics we have, at every time we've been 100% wrong. We've just been temporarily correct, and then we have to throw out everything we knew about the universe. So at some point, you've got to admit that all we're doing is kind of like searching the universe. Right?
The only thing that we're 100% correct on ever is math, and that's only if it's axiom set.
But I think because it's purely abstract.
Yeah, because it's not real.
It's not real.
No. Math. No, time out. Math is not science. No. Actually, this is a very serious point. The reason we can be 100% right about math is that math is in the realm of the metaphysics. Metaphysics are hard, but they're actually the only place.
Math is amazing. Math is like.
But a good example is a circle, right? There's no such thing as a circle. And math is a pure loci with distribution points, but you'll never find one physically.
It's imaginary, but it's somehow useful.
Yes, very, very useful. Hey, we got the wheel.
Yes.
Remember the wheel?
I've been studying abstract nonsense in these last few
you
months,
can't
and I must say,
you can't make a circle of atoms, right? The irony is, if you look at
Ralph, you can, and I can give you a formal proof of that, and I can show you the part of the literature where that formal proof would derive from. Actually, every single infinitely dimensional circle could be generalized to a single point in a finite dimensional integral.
You could do that in abstract maths, but let me give you a simple example. When in nanotechnology, the early experiments in IBM, when I lived down the road from the San Jose IBM laboratory, it pioneered lots of the stuff. There's the biggest breakthroughs when they managed to spell with electrons IBM.
Oh,
so
yeah.
The electrons and arrange them as IBM, but you can't put the electrons in a circle. All you can do is collapse some S-wave functions, give you the
Ralph, you're not thinking of portals. Think of a Hamming ball.
Okay, this is come on. Don't do like physics that nobody understands. It's
think of it like encoding and encryption.
2 seconds. Whoops. Hello.
Isn't that fantastic?
But I'm inviting people who don't believe in my rule that everyone who's anti-Israel is anti their own people. Anyone who can find an exception to this is welcome to bring it to me.
Masad, please just we need to have like a separate chat in terms of like just a separate regular stream about just the Israel stream, because it's like these streams keep getting digressed into Israel. I hate it.
But that's what the stream is about.
I know, but even then I hate it. Can we not talk about Israel?
But that's what the stream is about. You've been talking about stuff that was not relevant to this stream. I'm actually trying to bring it back to the topic.
Because every stream is about Israel, and I'm sick of it.
Even when the stream isn't about Israel, it becomes about Israel, is the point Apex is trying to make, even though this stream's topic is technically about the failure for BDS to actually get legal... what is it? A bill pushed through that was gonna... I didn't really... It was really kind of politics didn't matter to me. I didn't really worry about it too much. I didn't figure it would go through, so I wasn't too...
the thing is, like, it's
no, it should go through. Hopefully, it will go through.
The bill?
The bill to block.
Thank you, gentlemen. Have a good night, everyone. I'm out.
The bill to block the. Hey, bye. The bill to block the ability of local towns to boycott Israel. That's what I believe.
Yeah, First World crushes I've got the First World crushes anti-Semitic BDS legislation, which I'm reading as there was some anti-Semitic legislation that the BDS was pushing through, and we pushed it out.
I think locally. So.
Okay.
Look.
I may not understand.
My point is this.
I may be wrong.
We went through the event, and now that we've gone through the event, talking about Israel is really not that interesting. Like, there's just no. It's like once you've been through the new event that finally happened.
One of the things you guys have to realize, so this is something I picked up on, I think, partway through the whole stream too, and this is why
this was not about Israel, by the way. If you think about it, what I said is not relevant to Israel. It's global. I said that anyone who's anti-Israel is an enemy of their own people. That's all. That's for the whole West.
And I'm going to tell you guys right now that the next time you guys deal with John Vance, you're going to be dealing with a gaslighter. That's literally all he does is gaslight. He's very clearly, he doesn't care if you hit him with facts. He's just going to tell you that I don't care. I don't think that's right. I disagree with that. And he's just a gaslighter. He's very clearly just trying to get people angry, because when I answered a question he had the last stream he was on, and I actually answered the question, then I gave him some scripture. He said, can you draw me a diagram? And I went, okay, now you're just trying to gaslight us because you very clearly aren't actually interested in the answer.
Okay, Raymond, the correct answer to that is, can you define for me what you mean by a diagram?
Yes, right. And it's just at some point it just becomes a degenerate mess of like you're trying to get into this metaphysical, like you end up into this weird like ontological and then epistemological and then teleological conversation, and then he just wants to pick everything apart just so he can be right because he doesn't want to actually admit that he could be wrong about stuff. And sure, yeah, like maybe he's right. Maybe he's right about one very specific thing. Everything has a grain of truth, or like
you know who did this to you?
Like a kernel of truth in it.
You know who did this to you, David? Do you remember how he upset you?
Yeah. No, it does
he
does
it just to wind you up. He has no clue what he's talking about. He's just.
I am completely aware. I muted myself on stream so you guys wouldn't hear me just getting annoyed how everybody was yelling at each other.
But Raymond, you made a very important point there, but humility is really important. People don't think that. They should play a lot of speed chess. I play about 30 games a day. It's 1 minute speed games only. And that very quickly humbles you to what you thought was right and how you were proved to be wrong. And it's a great, just keep losing in speed chess to see very quickly how you adjust yourself into an infinite ladder. You're never going to be...
Wasn't he trolling us? I mean, he had this really strange tone to him. He
was very clearly was starting to troll, and everybody was starting to bite, and I was just like,
no, he wants to come in there and he wants to preach. He's a new Muslim, so he's going to want. They're going to my newfound wisdom. Jews are wrong, Christians are wrong. I've got the only final revelation. Bring me the text. Let me refute them. But he's a young Muslim. Most young Muslims have this kind of zeal, but then he gets all belligerent, like blah, 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 blah. He gets a bit alpha.
No, he came onto Veli Vision.
channel.
He came onto Veli Vision G Block's channel, and he does the exact same thing.
Yeah, does he? Oh, that's Claire Cole has been taking him around every. I think she's unleashed and going, "Oh, go get the Christians, get the Jews." You're like, the Torah is corrupt because the Muslims told me. I'm like, really? Do you think the Jewish people don't know how to defend the Torah?
Ralph. If your analysis is correct, he would defend the Islamic position, or he would defend the perceived Islamic position.
Yeah, his received one
consistently.
Yeah, I like to drop
but he'd be able
Muslims
to
are clear that you have to understand Arabic, right? And I love to drop fun facts like 70% of Muslims don't read Arabic, so they've never really read the Quran.
And they do have a moon on their flag, which is from the goddess La, the goddess of the moon.
Oh, this whole like symbolism thing is also, okay, so you don't worship symbols and you don't think symbols are not made of God.
Exactly. The Muslims do not believe in the moon.
You all look the same. You're like, no. Yeah. We are
and the Christians do not believe in the plus symbol.
And technically, them again, the baby isn't actually a seal. It's a simple marriage.
Didn't Muhammad apparently crack the moon? Like, I'm still looking for that crack.
I don't know, but
listen,
I will say.
Listen, we all have we have miracles in the Bible too. So to ever go at him at some claim that he's miraculous, it's like, So that's why I don't talk about any of this stuff. That's why I stick to 1948. It was renamed.
You can take all three Abrahamic faiths and you can make a game theory decision. Am I going to look for cooperation, common ground, or am I going to look for conflict? And depending on your orientation, that's how the conversation is going to go, right? If you come in there going, I'm going to fuck up the Jews and Christians, you're going to run into Jews and Christians, going to fuck you up too. And that conversation is going to be, as opposed to, should your faith be practicing peace on earth and love, or am I mistaking the faiths? Right?
Well, I think it's, again, being pragmatic. Like, if King Charles says he's going to be the king of all faiths, then we should be uniting all the faiths in this country to, pull the king's feet to the fire to make sure he obeys his obligations.
I think you'll find the Jews in Britain are very patriotic, unlike some other groups.
But time out. King Charles, nevertheless, is the head of the Anglican Church. Now, I understand that that's become a country club, but objectively, he should.
No, he did claim he's the head of the.
Look at the coronations. He had a Jew, a Muslim, a Sikh, and a Hindu to provide him certain items during the ceremony.
Did you know that? Did you know that the Jews have every weekend they pray to the monarchy, to the country, to the people, and so on?
I'm not British.
Yeah, I actually saw outside of a Hindu temple having a big placard celebrating King Charles and his coronation. So
yeah, but the only people who actually have a prayer that goes back, I think, over 100 years are the Jews. Even the Christians don't have a prayer for the head of the church, but the Jews do.
That's why I was insinuating of the three Abrahamic faiths. One of the faiths, Judaism.
Mossad, you're overselling this prayer. Let's be honest. It's a very short prayer. Prayers in Judaism are usually very short and concise.
Well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
I know. They usually start
you can go and
like
read it. I mean,
they usually start something like Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, and then whatever we're gonna say.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. It has meaning. You know, when I think that tefillin prayer has meaning. It tells you.
I agree with you. It has meaning.
What you should do. Yeah, what you should do is remember to teach your children what you've learned.
I just turned to my father today in the wedding, and I just said, "You are not buying me a new tefillin for my wedding." He's like, "Why not?" I'm like, "Because I already have one, and it's mine, and I like it. Why would I want a new one for my wedding?" I'd be welcoming my wife.
As well, man.
No. I'd be welcoming my wife into my tefillin, not buying a new one. What is this? I'm a man.
Anyway, let's not bore them.
I'm just saying. We have the opportunity to obviously not unite all of the Jews, Muslims, Christians, Hindus, Sikhs, but at least a good amount of them that care about the stability of this country and want to make use of the constitutional laws that ensure that the king, obeys his obligations and is not like a tyrannical king. Otherwise, he'll be like Magna Carta all over again.
I think that Britain is a positive force in the world, and it should we should do whatever we can to help it remain strong.
On that note, my guys, unfortunately, quite late. I have some duties I have to perform, so I'm going to have to bail on the stream as well. Sorry for the short notice. But cheers, Red, man. Nice to hear you. Good to be back. Scholars, glad to hear you again, man. Jump on sometime, and and let's just be sure no mooses were hurt during the making.
Ralph, I'll send you more updates about the thing I'm writing.
I'll bring you tomorrow, man, as soon as I go back.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, cheers.
Thank you. Sorry for shouting.
1-0, 1-0. Now you shout 1-0, 1-0, 1-0, 1-0, 1-0.